Namaskar and a warm global welcome to all our wonderful viewers, educators, students, seekers of identity, and champions of diverse voices. I am Diviya Mehra, your host for Educational Connect with DM, a space where stories spark reflection and conversations inspire change. Today's dialogue is especially very close to my heart. We are not just exploring borders on a map, we are stepping into an emotional landscape of those who grow a bit in between them. So, our theme for today is Different Worlds, a Third Culture Kid, a conversation on culture, identity, and belonging in an ever globalizing world. As global mobility reshapes families, education, and communities, a new kind of identity has emerged. That is of the third culture kid, TCK, that we are going to be talking about today. These are individuals who spend their formative years in a culture different from their parents, leading to journeys that are beautifully complex, often layered with questions of where do I belong? And guided us through this experience, we are joined by someone who is a story herself. Please join me in welcoming Sonam, a proud third culture kid, a global citizen, and a soft but powerful voice for those who have lived in between the worlds. Sonam is Bhutanese by her origin, raised across Qatar and Southeast Asia, and now rooted in Japan. Sonam's journey has been one of transitions, reflections, and building home within herself. She's not only lived the TCK experience, she has deeply felt and articulated it what it means to grow up between the identities, from shifting friendships and changing schools to redefining home. Her life narratives gives us a lens into what growing up globally truly feels like. Sonam is also a storyteller and educator at heart, and someone who seamlessly bridges her multicultural identity into the thoughtful conversations about inclusion, empathy, and global belonging. So, today's session is more than just an interview, it's a chance to listen deeply, learn intentionally, and expand our understandings on identity beyond borders and boxes. Sonam, we are honored to have you here, and the virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Divya. It's an honor to be here and to be able to share my experience with everybody today.
Thank you so much, Sonam, and it's a complete honor for us. We are really looking forward to hear from you because there's so much to share, so much to know, and especially from a child who has been through different worlds. Yeah, I would use the word worlds here because you have transited. So we are going to be just connecting the dots between the worlds to identify how Sonam has been framed, right?
Right.
So, introducing to you all Sonam, the third culture kid, and she's not a kid anymore, so that is why her name reflects adult. Okay, Sonam. So, talking about the third culture kid world, my audience is really looking forward to hear from you. So, as for your journey, when you transited from your birthplace to where you are today, so, can you tell us about your journey from Bhutan to Japan and like where were you born? How did you landed up in Japan?
Mhm.
And what it means to be the identity of a third culture kid, if we shall talk about. Yeah.
Mhm. So definitely, my journey as a third culture kid was not intentional. It was all circumstances related. I started off with I was born in Bhutan. I was there till my primary school, so my primary grade. I was there till 10 around 11. That's when thanks to my father's job, I had to relocate to Qatar. So the family had to relocate to Qatar, and from there, after that, I grew up with a lot of anime and like a lot of Japanese culture. So something that remained the same across both Bhutan and Qatar was the love for Studio Ghibli. And I kind of wanted to move to Japan, but during that time in my life, it wasn't feasible. So I had a little stopover at Malaysia. And after that, I kind of realized that I actually really do want to make the move to Japan. And I somehow managed to it was a dream, and I was able to finally fulfill my dream of moving to Japan. And yeah, it's of course for growing up, there was no idea of like, identity. What I knew was like just what I grew up in the family. There was when in Bhutan, I was just Sonam. In like Qatar, because not many people knew about Bhutan, I was still Sonam. So it was like, it was, I was able to be myself. And especially being coming from a small country where not many people know where Bhutan is, it was, most people saw me as just Sonam because they couldn't associate with me with like a certain culture or like a mainstream culture.
Right. So I think that's really nice, as you mentioned about being self, and that is what we are here to hear from you. That how being self through different cultures, like how you have framed yourself and yourself today. Really nice to hear that, Sonam. And as we talk about being self and being how we transit from one culture to another, it's really nice to see that you have lived three cultures. So Sonam was born in Bhutan. She has been raised from a very young age. She shifted, family shifted to Qatar, and since then she manifested to be in Japan. And there she is. She's been actually doing a wonderful work that we are going to be discussing today. So, Sonam, though you were been born in Bhutan, much of your upbringing took place abroad only, right?
Mhm.
So, what does being Bhutanese mean to you personally? So, how do you associate with the word of being an origin from Bhutan?
Mhm. Thank you very much, Divya, for the question, because this is still like a question that I ask myself as well. I struggle with what being a Bhutanese is because I think as part of identity, people tell you what you are as a Bhutanese, or like, people have like so many descriptions. They try to put you in a box for being a thing. So for the longest time, I was also struggling to understand what being a Bhutanese was because sometimes Bhutanese media would say like, oh, if you don't speak Dzongkha, you're not Bhutanese. Like, it's like those were some comments that made me doubt what being a Bhutanese was. But I grew up like any other Bhutanese kid. Just I went to public school like any other Bhutanese kid. I struggled with math and Zonka like any most of the Bhutanese kids do, and I had a family who being I think being coming from a very small country, we had exposure to because there was no mainstream media to consume as well. I grew up like any other Bhutanese kid who consumed cartoons in Hindi, could like watch dramas, serial dramas with my aunties and like my grandmother and all those. So being Bhutanese after that, like going outside of Bhutan, and then first of all going to a place where people didn't even know where the country Bhutan was, kind of gave me that little bit of space to kind of make up my own identity of what being Bhutanese was. And then after that, moving into another country where people actually knew where Bhutan was, now they had certain ideas about what being Bhutanese was. Like they would say, oh, like Bhutan, the land, the happiest country in the world. And they had so many questions regarding that, to which by then I could no longer really give or identify because I felt like I did not represent whatever image they had of Bhutan because I had already spent a good amount of time in Qatar by then. And yeah, that's to do
Yeah.
with.
So, Sonam, we have some beautiful pictures of you on the screen, and yes, it's really fascinating to know more about it. So, could you please explain to us, like, how has your childhood been in Bhutan, and what are these pictures depicting?
So, of course, by Picasso art. This was my first art sketchbook that my parents bought me, and yeah, this was the little. I was trying to draw a cat, and I was also trying to draw a woman, and those were my first art. Like I think any record that's ever left of any attempt at art that I had are these two pictures, and the photo of me and my siblings. That's with my father used to take us hiking a lot because Bhutan is a very mountainous country. So now out of nowhere, some days my dad would be like, "Oh, you know, pack up your bags. We're just gonna go for a walk up, like behind the house." And he would end up taking us for a lot of. He would end up taking us like on these hills, and then we would come home by evening. So this picture actually depicts one of the travels or the hiking trips that we had with our with my father. My siblings grew to love hiking. But for me, I think I've not enjoyed hiking since then. And the other photos are basically of me in school. I had short hair because as a Bhutanese kid, most schools required even like girls to have short hair, so it was for hygiene. And I grew up with a lot of animals as well. We had a lot of cats and dogs. So especially in Bhutan, we don't really have pet shops, but it's like all this you get adopted by stray dogs and stray cats. So these are one of the cat kitties that I had when I was a kid. And the one on the most like top, the picture of me using my mom's laptop, that was me playing solitaire. I'm sure you can't see through the monitor, but yeah, that was, I didn't know what I could barely write back then, but I was very good at playing solitaire. And yeah, that's a little
Beautiful.
glimpse into my life there.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to know, and it's really. I think it's living in the nature. I can just feel the kind of an essence in the pictures, how real and true it feels. So thank you for sharing some personal pictures here, Sonam. We're really glad we could look into the landscape of life and the sketching part. It's really beautiful. I think that is where it all began. To the
Definitely.
Sonam that we have today, that we're going to be discussing by the end of the session, people will get to know why I'm talking about this thing, because Sonam's journey to the industry she's in today has started from the sketch from Bhutan. So by the end of the session, people might understand why we are saying this. Anyways, thank you, Sonam, for sharing up your beautiful pictures. Indeed, it's a privilege for us to get into your life and know much better about it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
as I've been talking about here, so Bhutan has been really close to you just because you're born, so you might have a lot of memories,
Mm,
like food, culture, lifestyle, family, parents, as you were sharing here. So, can you talk a little bit more about Bhutan for the audience to know, for the people been watching, like
mhm.
what exactly is the country Bhutan? If
Right.
I, as an individual, want to associate with the festival, with the tradition, family rituals, right? And how does it make you feel grounded? Your origination, how does it make you feel more connected?
I would say my first image for me, I know that a lot of people have the idea of festivals and also Bhutan being the happiest country in the world. We are of course, our fourth king was the founder of the concept of cross national happiness. And that's something that put the country on the map for the rest of the world. But I would say for me, food was definitely the biggest ritual that I can think of that connected me. And so that it's weird because it's not even Bhutanese food. It's my mom's spaghetti that she used to cook. So this is, I just realized I was having a conversation a couple of I think a year or back ago about how I always thought spaghetti was a Bhutanese dish, and I didn't realize that it was actually, yeah, it was not from Bhutan. But I grew up eating like spaghetti, I would say like mom's pasta, and that was something that like instantly kind of reminded me of home or like my family. Because for me, what made me Bhutanese was the rituals I had at home or the traditions, the customs at home. And yeah,
Okay, so now I'm going to share a few pictures with you. Just see if you can associate with them, and if you can share something with the audience, like how would you associate with these pictures? I've posted from Japan only, right?
right,
Sorry, Bhutan, of course.
right,
Yeah, we'll just have a look.
right. These are, yes. It's, I guess it's a very familiar scene if you, especially if you're visiting temples and monasteries in Bhutan. Yeah, it's a very carefree. I think my image of seeing monks have completely changed from when I was living in Bhutan to what now, like being outside. As a kid, there was this common, and this is not true by the way, but just like there was a common saying that if you were not smart enough for school, you would be put into uh, monasteries and become a monk there if you're not, yeah. So that was like a very like there was a that was a terrible stereotype which I still think does not hold true to this. But as a kid growing up seeing monks, it's like, no, they're the ones that didn't do well in school. But
Okay, so that is how we associate. Okay, so basically, the imagination that people usually have for Bhutan visualizing it is just being with the stories of monks and
right,
temples, right? So it's really important for us to know that specifically you need to study hard, right?
right. But
Okay,
yeah,
something like this.
definitely the carefreeness again. Yeah, I would say as I don't really have much memories of my school, but like the very little memories I have of attending primary school was just being very carefree. Like it was definitely, this kind of reflects how I felt back then as well. Like we were just playing around. I don't remember ever having to study really hard. It was just, you go to school, you meet with friends, and it was, yeah, something that I still resonate with deeply. I feel like this is a depiction of every Bhutanese school going children.
Okay, yeah, something like people would really be fond to know about something like
Right, the countryside or the villages. So in all honesty, I would say I did not grow up in the village side. So I grew up in the town, like, not even a city, but I grew up in a town. So this site is quite common as you go outside of the town. But like for me, I never personally experienced that lifestyle. My parents were both working parents. So this was something that was also like luxury or a privilege to be able to see. Of course, there are people who lived that lifestyle, like, who actually who did the work, amazing work. And yeah, when I go back right now, it's definitely something that I really romanticize as well. This is sometimes I feel like I see these images through the lens of a foreigner as well, a traveler as well, like someone who has not lived there. Because if you, like most Bhutanese kids, grow up in town area as well, it can kind of seem like a very different lifestyle.
so I think most of us has associated ourselves with these pictures, and it is very important for us to know that there are
Mhm.
different sides of Bhutan, and that is why I purposely raised this here, so that basically you can talk a little bit more about it for the people to know that there are different sides to Bhutan.
Mhm. And the architect, oh, right. See, I never, again, when I was younger, I never appreciated or understood the architecture. I just thought, seeing a lot of seeing castles and seeing all different type of architect in like on media, like mainstream media, I was always in love with like let's say Santorini, like the way it was, they were built. And there was always like the yearning for a different type of design. But now coming back, this is very uniquely Bhutanese, and it's very uniquely, yeah, I think I'm actually very proud of the architect that we have. And we have a standard with the buildings where people are expected to have like kind of maintain the traditional look to buildings nowadays. And I think it was like a really good decision, because it's actually really pretty. You don't see this site often, like especially when you're flying in, and among the mountains you see this type of like structure. It kind of feels like you are in a very different like world itself.
Right. It's actually a very unique structure, and we can identify the regional essence of it the very moment we see. And that
Mhm,
is why even your pictures are really reflecting as the same. So let's glance into them as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so the first one is called Tatsang. It's the tiger's nest, and it's one of the famous temples in Bhutan. So the valley that I grew up in, actually, That's where it was located, Paro Valley. And Paro also holds the only international airport in Bhutan. So it's now, I believe, around 45 to an hour drive from the capital city of Thimphu. But it's a beautiful site. It takes a long time to get up there. For I think for experienced hikers, you would get there in an hour or so, an hour and a half. Then there are people like us who would have to, take 2 hours just go up there. It's a sight to behold because it's like located right like in the mountains in the ravines, and yeah, of course, a lot of Buddhist history associated with it as well. And the second is, of course, chilies are the main ingredients for all Bhutanese dishes. And it's really funny because, in around the world, I believe like chili is kind of treated as a spice, but in Bhutan, chili is kind of treated vegetable. So the whenever I talk about like whenever somebody asks me what Bhutanese dish is and I'm like chili, they think like, oh, kind of like everything's spicy. I'm like, yeah, but the main dish, the main ingredient itself is chili. So we do have a Bhutanese restaurant here in Tokyo as well, and every time I take
Wow.
my friends, they're it's a sight to sight to see.
Really nice.
Mhm.
Very nice, Sonam. It's really beautiful. And yes, of course, we usually associate with these pictures, and
Mhm.
especially about the temple whenever we talk about Bhutan. But it's
Mhm.
more to it. So before we wind up talking about your birthplace,
Mhm.
one last thing that basically people would really be curious to know about, and that is the gross national happiness.
Mhm.
So, how has Bhutan able to maintain that, and why is that Bhutan is quite known for being a happy country?
Mhm. So what I usually always tell people is this is again, I cannot represent the views of every Bhutanese person, but from what I know of gross national happiness is it's the word itself, happiness itself, it's there is no like direct exact translation. So in Japanese, it's happiness translates directly to shiawase, and like in English is happiness, whereas in Zonka, like my with my limited Zonka right now, I know the word happiness is like semgai, which is like you're feeling happy, or like it's kind of those like the current feeling that you have, right? You can feel sad, you can feel happy. So that's what I associate like the idea of Bhutanese people being happy with. But so GNH itself, I think it's rather than happiness itself, it's kind of translate to being content with what you have. So of course, like if you are healthy, if your family's doing well, if you have a roof over your head, you have like access to education, healthcare, and everybody's you live in a very good community, right? You are content. So it's like the pursuit of like that type of lifestyle rather than like pursuit of wealth, or like pursuit of wealth just which is, I believe, like GDP, right, which most nations aim for. So
So
yeah,
yeah.
mhm. And so this is why whenever somebody like whenever people ask me about GNH, it's always it's about being content rather than like you know like pursuing happiness. And like pursuing happiness can mean very different things for people, right? Some people think they would be happy with more money, some people think they would be happy with a better career, some people think they would be happy with so many things to define happiness. But GNH feels like, in my interpretation, just defines what the average Bhutanese person feels about being in Bhutanese, which is being content. And yeah, those are the things that kind of encompasses being like content.
As Sonam has been highlighting about happiness, I think it's really important for us to know that it's a matter of a mindset, and it's a skill that has been developed for in an individual from the initial years of a life, that you have beautifully portrayed here. That it's learning and it's knowing that how to be happy. What is content? Being content in things that have been available to us, being happy and grateful for everything that we have been having. And I think being culturally associated with Bhutan, this is something really a blessing that you learn from the very initial years of your life, and that is what
Mhm.
cultural differences teach us. So I think Bhutan deserving to be among the top in the gross national happiness index is, of course, indeed a moment of pride, and we need to learn a lot from it. So as Sonam was been mentioning that the positioning of Japan, many people are not been knowing about. So we are going to highlight and show where Bhutan is located before we wind up and we move on to the next region, right? So we have it on the world map in the location where it has been associated by a number of beautiful countries around it. And that is how Bhutan has beautifully shaped Sonam and the initial years of a beautiful life. So thank you, Sonam, for sharing how your birthplace has actually raised you and helped you grow, and especially how being happy is all about. That's really
Thank you.
important for us to know. As we talk about the initial years of you being born, you beautifully shared how Bhutan has actually shaped you into the person you are today. Let's move on to the next destination. That's the second place in this culture that we discuss about. We are here at Qatar, right? So talking about Qatar, I think you can share much better before I do, and then we can further
Mhm.
discuss that how the essence of Qatar has been different and has been important for you.
Of course. So yeah, to start off with, just to give a brief idea, I moved to Qatar when I was around 11, so turning 12, and that was because of my father's work. So my I joined my father with my mother, and my sister as well. So as a family, we moved there, and it was it was definitely a different experience. So having grown up in a country just filled with mountains, and all of a sudden just moving to a place in the desert, finding out that it
Yeah.
rains maybe like once or twice, like in a whole year, kind of. There was a lot of things to learn as well, and as you know, that Bhutan is a predominantly Buddhist country. It was my first time going to like moving to a Muslim majority country as well. So, and the curriculum was different. I grew up with, of course, luckily for me, the Bhutanese, most of the schools, the medium is in English, so I didn't have any struggles when it came to the language itself. So I went to an international school in Qatar as well. But the only thing is, again, being from a minority country, it was really hard for my. I think it was a bit of a tough like decision for my parents to choose like what type of curriculum that they wanted us to study in. So if so for expats, children growing up there, if there is like the community is wide or big enough, they have the choice of going into studying into schools that actually get kind of teach their curriculum. So when the child grows up and they're ready to go back to their country, they can reintegrate easily. For the rest of us who don't have that type of a large community, we had to kind of choose between like the British curriculum or uh, the American curriculum as well. And I think I don't even, there wasn't even like a very strong reason. It was just, let's just go with the British curriculum as well. And I ended up going to a school with the British curriculum. And definitely it was interesting as well because all of a sudden I'm studying about British history, British geography. So even though I was growing up in Qatar, it was my education system was still very British.
Right. So how beautiful. So I think the origination from Bhutan has always taught you, and that is why you have been able to adjust to Qatar. And it's really nice to see the pictures here of again a personal touch Sonam has given of a life in Qatar. So could you please share us more about what these pictures are all about?
Of course. So yes, you see a couple of my art. So I was actually taking art as part of the IGCSEs. So these were some of the artwork that I did for as part of my course. And on like the topmost, that's me in high school with my glasses on, and that was actually during one of my art exams that for IGCSEs. Below that is the in the middle. You see a picture of me, my sister, and her two friends. And this was when I was in middle school. I went in all girls school as well, so this was the first time I actually had moved to Qatar and started going to school there. And this is one of the very few photos that I have, but yeah, it was a very good time as well. And going to an all girls school was also a very different experience because I came from a country where we don't have this type of like segregated education system as well. But I think that was also the best decision I made in my life, because after like studying in a girls' school and then going to a co-ed school, I could see the difference in how, like, how girls were taught and girls were educated as well. So uh, it was interesting because, when you're in a girls' school, you hold up every position, you're playing every sports. There's no kind of like, no sports or any no activities are gendered. So it's not just like the guys playing football in the field and girls playing something else. It was like girls were equally playing football. And so yeah, those that was a very like that was the best time of my life there. Still kind of coming out of Bhutan, trying to figure out myself out, and kind of slowly getting used to the Qatar Qatar school in Qatar as well. And the one with me holding a camera is just I was that was in, I think, almost the end of my high school, and that was a coursework where I was part of the travel and tourism course, and we had to actually arrange a trip for our juniors. And part of the trip was we had to plan an itinerary, and it was a museum that we put like dune bashing, and going to a camel farm, and then visiting a cultural Qatari like cultural heritage as part of the trip. And yeah, that's the photo from there. Hmm.
That's really nice, Sonam. It's how beautifully you have depicted and shown the beautiful transactions that we have been having here. So, talking about Qatar, as you were sharing about your lifestyle. So, when you're talking about being in from Bhutan to Qatar as you transited, so you were raised in Qatar. That how do you think that the multicultural world shape your first sense of self there? As you were talking about the schooling also, and you told that your childhood was been there in Qatar, then how did it help you to change the kind of a mindset that you actually were thinking that the world is all about, just because you been in just one country and coming to a different world, as you mentioned that the cultural difference was a very wide step that you had taken. So how do you feel that it helped you generate a self sense of yours?
Mhm. I think before I move on to talk about like how Qatar raised me, I think it also really came from my background as in Bhutan, like having parents who kind of were away. Like I had both my parents were working, and sometimes they like, my mother was studying in Qatar, not Qatar, sorry, Canada for like 2 years. So I kind of grew up with like the curiosity for the world outside. I've always been curious, and I wanted to know how people live, and like that type of mentality, I think, actually really helped with the transition, because by the time I was in Qatar, I think my sister and I had very different reaction to our move there. My sister missed her friends, her like classmates back at home, and she was kind of homesick. But for me, I was like, this is exciting. I actually enjoy here. So I still do remember like overhearing my parents kind of talk about like, oh, should we kind of move back, because like my sister wasn't adapting well, right? So she was having a bit of a tougher time adjusting, and she was 2 years older than me, so it's understandable that she was already at the age where she had really good friends, and she already had developed a sense of belonging in Bhutan, whereas I was all I cared was playing video games, watching anime. Even back in Bhutan as well, I spent so much time by myself. So by the time I was in Qatar, it was just, yeah, like again, another adventure for me, something like, that I was going to get used to, and that was going to be part of me. So yeah, I think that actually helped with the transition. And all of a sudden, like, again, meeting people with very different culture and background, like, it was a story, right, to hear. I was very curious, and learning about, like, I would just be very nosy with my friends of like, okay, well, they'll tell me they're from here, and then like, okay, so how are things here, like, and again, Islam was a religion I'd never been in touch with. I had no idea of what it was, like what Islam was, until, and almost all of a sudden my friends are like, I'm one of the very few kids who are non-Muslim in my school, and learning about the culture, the religion itself it was very exciting, and it was a lot to like, it was very good knowledge, I would say, and it made me appreciate the world a bit more as well. Yeah.
We can see that, Sonam, coming from varied places and the culture. And of course, as I think one thing you can really associate it as Bhutan has been full of nature and colors for you. I think Qatar has served you the same. So here are
Mhm.
a few pictures again, sharing an essence for Qatar, and I think you will be able to shed some light on this only, because
Mhm.
so I think some kind of a feeling might hit back to you for the visuals that you actually can see here.
Right. Yeah, this is like the souk, so this color is also very vibrant, right? And it's again like when you're actually there, you don't really see much. You're just associated with, okay, this is Qatar. But when I look at it now, and like even when I visit Qatar now, it's just these are so wonderful. I actually bought a jacket that was made out of this textile because like
Wow, that's incredible.
I learned to appreciate the fabrics and the textile more now that I'm no longer there.
Right. One thing really common here is the souk there, and for the people to know, souk is referring to the market.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the word that we used. So we have some beautiful images from Qatar, and of course, there's the other side to it as well.
Mhm.
Just don't see the market and the beautiful architecture. That this is
Mhm.
Qatar has been known for the beautiful architecture that we can see here. Some beautiful pictures representing the essence of Qatar,
So this
and
is
yeah.
this photo is just to let you know. There is you can see like the blue kind of blue highlighted windows at the back, like a small building. So my house was actually kind of in that area. So this is
Oh,
a
that's
very
really
like
nice.
nostalgic scene for me because it was where
Oh,
I like also grew up when I was there.
right. Very, really nice, Sonam. So I think these images are kind of hitting you back to that the places to know more about the your presence in the places.
Mhm.
Okay. Sharing to you all the location and the placing of Qatar around the world that we have been having. Uh, so we are in the Middle East. So Qatar has been located as a country just in the next to it's very close to UAE and Saudi Arabia, and a beautiful place. Indeed, you should be going there and must visiting. So Sonam, thank you for sharing so much about Qatar. I would last ask you one more question before we move on to your next destination.
Mhm.
Like uh, growing up in a place that wasn't fully yours. So how do you feel that you were living in between the cultures?
The friendship, I think, really helped me through everything. It was having friends. I also, when I was there, I was still into Japanese culture back then as well, and there was the little Japanese language school, like an after school activity that I would go to, and that's where I met most of my Qatari friends as well. And having that friendship was very important to me, and I think it really helped me sh- kind of kind of feel like Qatar as a home. And you know, of course, like just by having a passport or having a like citizenship of the country doesn't really make something like in a place your home. It's just having friends that like whenever you go back, you're able to meet them, being able to also the first thing what you think of, like the first food you want to eat as soon as you get back, right? If that place has it, then that's almost like home. So which like you showed here on the screen, which is, yeah, warak anab is one of my favorite food, and it's something that I crave for, and the first thing I always want to eat every time I go back to Qatar now.
It's really nice, Sonam. So, could you tell something that how has been different for you in Qatar? Something that is unique about Qatar that you would like to mention?
It was definitely, I think, personally in that personal space of people not knowing where I was from. Like, forget not what Bhutan is. It's like where Bhutan is. They would ask, "What is Bhutan?" So it was a very interesting. I was everywhere, but not never from Bhutan, and Qatar itself was, I think, because it was near the sea. I always kind of again romanticized growing up near the sea as well, kind of, and Qatar had that as well, and it was very different, I would say, but at the same time it still feels very home as well. So it's really hard to kind of think of how different Qatar is.
As you spend your formative years in it's really important for us to remember a lot of good things that we carry along the way.
Mhm.
And you beautifully depicted here also how your origin from Bhutan and Qatar has been compared.
Mhm.
So what is text novel that you would like to highlight something here, Sonam? Why has
Yes.
it been mentioned here?
So, Text Novel was actually this website where I started writing self-help novels. So,
Oh,
Qatar was also the place where I met the internet, or like met most of the internet communities. And Text Novel community was one of the first communities that I ever like became really close with online. So, of course, like again, having that identity, like I was trying to go through my school, but I would come home and I would start writing stories online. And then there were a group of people from all over the world who were also writing like, stories in a cell phone novel format. So this was like the first community to write cell phone novels originate from Japan. But like, this was translated, and this website actually was one of the first website to actually allow people to write cell phone novels like in a short cell phone text format. So yeah, I met a lot of people there, and I spent a lot of time online as well. I spent a lot of time with communities, and I spent the most time with the tech novel people online actually. So we still got to share our love for Japan and the Japanese culture,
yeah,
and
we are
also.
really looking forward to. Even I'm looking forward to that. I'll be really honest about it. Right. It's really important for the viewers to know text novel is very beautifully here. Sonam has highlighted. It's really fascinating, and of course, even I'm going to search about it. So, text novel helps you write your own novels, and that is
So
where the love for creative writing started here.
unfortunately, the site is no longer there. I think a lot of
Oh,
so a lot of the writers actually then kind of migrated to Wattpad. So I still have my stuff on Wattpad now. I kind of moved some of my things, but I originally started writing. I started my writing journey on text novel.
oh, very nice. Right. So I think the writing journey, people can access to other platforms where they can
Mhm.
start writing novels, and I think it can be
Right.
really good for people to access more about it.
Mhm.
Okay. One last thing to know more about Qatar, that something from your childhood, as you were being in Qatar, something that you can talk about, which maybe a smell or a place or a school memory that still feels home to you, because Qatar is full of wide, diverse, beautiful places. A transaction between the modern and the traditional world. It's a beautiful correlation between the two. So, something of for that matter that would you like to share? Some places that you can still think of, so the audience would really like to hear from you.
So, in terms of smell, I would say definitely. I was just thinking of the smell of the sea line, the Corniche. So that's where like you see the boats being located. So that around that line is called the Corniche, and you could smell the sea instantly. So that's a very distinct smell that I still like associate with Doha itself. And other than that, there are three distinct smells that I can think makes Qatar for me. The smell of the sea from Corniche. Second is I am right now kind of trying to struggle remembering, but it's those incense smell that's very typical. Like you can find them in like Arabic stores, like incense and perfume
It's the
stores.
oud, the
Oud,
fragrance of the
right?
oud. Yeah,
Yes,
correct.
oud, right. So that's also very like much, smell of like nostalgia and familiarity. And the
Yeah.
final one is very personal. It's like the laundry detergent. I'm not sure if people use it. Comfort. Comfort is a very distinct smell. Like my mother always used to use it to do our laundries, and we would come home, and it's still every time I go back to Qatar to visit, I always like get all my laundries washed, and then I come back here, and then feel like I would hesitate to kind of wash it, like kind of wear it for a while because the detergent like scent is very strong. It stays with you for a while, and that smells like home.
I
So
think smell and the fragrances is the first thing that
mm,
basically hits our memories.
Right.
which makes us instantly connected to any place. We might
Mhm.
forget the visuals of it, but
Mhm.
the smell, it really ignites all the memories back again. So there's a beautiful connection between the smell and the memories that have been associated with the thoughts and how we have lived through it. It's
Mhm.
really nice that how beautifully you mentioned about the detergent and the laundry detergent as you were mentioning. Really glad to know that how small things in our lives basically makes us hit back to the same place that we have been brought up in. That's really nice, Sonam. Talking about Qatar, I think we have diversified and talked a lot about the place, yeah, you have been born in. And I think that it's been time for us to move on to the third destination. The third culture kid has finally reached the third place that we were actually looking for. And before moving on to the third destination, Sonam would like to share that how specifically, just being she was just 19 years old when Sonam got moved to Japan, and it's quite a bold step. And we would like to hear more from Sonam itself, that how it has beautifully curved and brought new changes in the learning dynamics of her journey.
So before I want to talk about the moving to Japan at 19, I did have a short layover of 11 months in Malaysia, and so I was 16, turning 17 when I finished high school, and I moved to Malaysia. I was originally there for with the intention of going to school, university there, and so I actually was enrolled in a university there. And after that, the whole plan was to go to Australia in like 2 years later after I complete my 2 years course in Malaysia. But since I was in high school, I've always wanted to go to Japan. I loved Studio Ghibli, and somewhere in my head, I had this dream of being an animator for Studio Ghibli. But my parents were a bit unsure, and because by then I was writing on text novel, and I was writing, I was, to be honest, I was writing since I think I would say from like my third grade. They were very like not the best stories, but I had a hobby of writing, and for my parents, they thought it would be best if I actually like go to a university or pursue mass communication or something, but in English, because back then the whole idea if I moved to Japan, it would mean that I was because Japan still relies heavily on Japanese. There was a fear that I would be terrible at Japanese, and I would also lose my English as well. So then I ended up moving to Malaysia right after I graduated, and during that time I took a course there. That was also the time when I first heard of the word third culture kid. And this was from another senior of mine. He was also from, I believe he was from Sudan, but he had grown up in UAE, like one of the Gulf countries as well. So when he first told me about third culture kid, along with another friend of mine who was also a Malaysian, raised in Qatar. So we kind of looked it up, and then after I started looking deeper into that, I kind of realized, oh, okay, so that's who I am. And fast track, after 11 months, I kind of realized I really wanted to go to Japan. I was like, I'm still young, I want to be able to do it. My father suggested maybe try going to like do your masters in Japan, but first finish your undergrad degree in Australia or like in Malaysia. But I went home to Qatar, and during that time, I met up with my friends from Qatar, where they had, there was a Japanese expo, and when visiting that exhibition, I kind of was like, I miss this. I still want to be able to move to Japan. I still want to, yeah, like live in Japan and like make a home out of Japan as well. And with that intention, I kind of decided not to continue my studies in Malaysia and move back. I moved back to Qatar, and then from there, I decided to go to Japan. But I would say this short layover, 11 months, it kind of really was the biggest change for me in my personality and in the way, in the way I saw the world as well. Because before I moved to Malaysia, I was quite introverted. I was quite shy as well, but moving to Malaysia and like having to start, like move there by myself, and then kind of experiencing the freedom, I had to realize I couldn't just like be shy in a corner. I had to really put myself out there. So I became involved in a lot of school activities. I kind of, yeah, like made a lot of friends as well. So 11 months short, I still have a little bit of affinity, like, and I still kind of resonate with Malaysia. I like it really helped me shape who I am like now. But although it was for a very short time, and yeah, that was the little layover in Malaysia.
I think it's incredible, and our journey as we transit, there has to be a push, and I think the destination was decided,
Mhm.
and Malaysia played the role for you to reach there.
Mhm.
So before moving ahead, so we had transited from Bhutan to Qatar, and now presently we are at Malaysia.
Mhm.
So I think the final destination is here right now, right? And I think Sonam can very well associate it with something like how this has actually helped her journey to Japan. So we have finally reached the third destination where Sonam has her what she manifested for. I think I would rather say this thing. So now, Sonam, could you please tell us that how Malaysia, post Malaysia, Japan
Mhm.
has actually framed your learning diversity?
Mhm.
What were the first steps initially that helped you land up to the dream job that you actually wanted, or
Mhm.
possibly the kind of cultural acceptance that you had in Japan? How was it different? So taking up this bold step at 19 means a lot. So
Mhm.
even after the 11th month journey from Malaysia to Japan, it ended you in Japan. Like so it's approximately at a very young age. You're in your teens. So how has this actually changed your whole perspective?
So with moving to Japan again, as you said, I felt like I manifested it a lot. So since I think I grew up with my first ever kind of interaction or meet like with Japanese culture was when I was around like 8, 9, when I had a little like book, illustration book that had like old Japanese folk lores, and I was kind of like in love with this idea of like samurais and those type of culture, and I've always kind of at the back of my head kind of really liked the Japanese culture. And when I was in Qatar during university, we had these school advisors for students who were graduating and going to university. So most of my friends, because we were in this British curriculum, some of my classmates, they were going back home to study, where some had already kind of set their heads to like Europe or North America. And for me personally, I back then I wanted to go to Japan, and I remember telling my school advisor about like, oh, I want to go to Japan, and it almost seemed very impossible because there was no like references. They couldn't give any advice on like finding like getting into university in Japan. But yeah, so that's why I kind of gave up halfway, I would say, and then moved to Malaysia. And then after that, when I went back to Qatar for that short break, I was kind of like, I'm sure there is a way. There has to be a way. So with that intention, then I went back home and went back to Qatar, and then I started looking up ways to go to Japan. And it was particularly hard because there were a lot of opportunities for students who are taking up science and business economics, but I was already in that art kind of a liberal art stream type of core, like already in that type path. So it was really hard to find a way to get in there. But the first and foremost, what I did was look up look into a lot of Japanese language schools. So I went online and I started emailing every language school that I could find, and surprisingly, most of them got back to me, and they were asking like, "Oh, what's the reason for wanting to study Japanese?" And I said, "Oh, I want to go to university there." And some of the I also had kind of vaguely picked out a university that I wanted to go to, and there, when I mentioned like, "Oh, I do want to try getting into this university, so like, can I, study Japanese first and then try for this university?" Surprisingly, there were some of the schools were like, "Wait, you're from Bhutan? Like, why not try for this university?" Because in Japan, universities are ranked as well, so they're like, "You can definitely get into this university." So they actually really kind of pushed my confidence as well, being able to go to university there. And I was, after that, I finally was able to enroll into a language school that was specifically for students going to Japanese universities. So it was not like it was like a full-time Japanese course. In the mornings I had to study Japanese. In the afternoons I had to take my geography, math, and even English and Japanese as well. So I spent a whole year studying Japanese language, and around, I think that was almost at the end of my year studying the language, I then had to start applying for universities. And when I was applying for the universities, I also met some of the seniors from my university as well, and they introduced me to this liberal School of International Liberal Studies, the faculty where they were from, and they were like, "You can definitely get in there." And the thing is, the department didn't even require Japanese. It was all English course. So I got really excited. I applied to the course, and my Japanese teachers back then they were a bit worried that I wouldn't. What if you don't get in? You know, you might want to pick another university as well. But I was like, nope. I've decided I'm going to this university. If I don't, I'll figure my plans out. So there was a time when I was a bit stressed because I'd only applied to this. I had put all my eggs in one basket, and I was like, if they accept me, then Uh, I'll get accepted. If they don't accept me, I'll find a way. I'll find a way. So I applied and I ended up getting accepted, and I spent my 4 years studying at that university. So, yeah, that was also, and then I was in an environment, although I was in Japan, because this course was in English, it was, a lot of, again, students from very different backgrounds. So, again, it felt like home because everybody was from somewhere and, like, also nowhere.
Right. So it's finding home in the home, right? So how you have found your way, that you moved on. I really wanted to move on to the next slide, but before that, I'm really curious. Sonam, there's a picture of you at the bottom,
Mhm.
and that has been specifically, just I'll read it out for the audience. It mentions Sonam from the Kingdom of Bhutan, undergraduate student of the School of International Liberal Studies. So could you please stress a little bit more about it? I'll just showcase your.
Of course. So I think this was me in my third year. By then, I was already part of a seminar, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So the thing with liberal studies is you get to study whatever you want, and there is no limitations. So first year, I was taking classes in like journalism, international relations. I took Russian studies, and I also took seminar on comedy and very diverse. So it's basically to help students kind of realize what they want to do as they try them out. So by the third year of university, I was already kind of confident that I wanted to do more because I was part of this conflict resolution class where I was very inspired. And given my background, I felt like I could do more for the international community as well. And, with my seminar being something to do with international development as well, I kind of set my goals on wanting to work in the international development, international, like kind of like United Nations type of field, international relations type of field. So this was actually an article by the by this university where they were asking different students from very unique countries why they were studying and what they were studying at the university. So I was one of, because again, being the only Bhutanese student there, I was selected to kind of talk about my goals and plans as well. Hmm.
So I think, Sonam, we have discussed a lot about universities, planning, and career. But my
Mhm.
point of interest in this pictures right now is the hair color. Could you please?
Right.
How did you this is really a fascinating point for me to see the transition in the colors. So how did you started with these bold colors for
Mhm.
hair?
Mhm. So I actually wanted to like yeah, this wanted to show these pictures because I wanted to depict that internal struggle that I was having with my identity. So of course, like outside, I was having fun with my friends and like I was enjoying and I thought I was myself. I could be myself, but there are still some parts of me that continue to struggle about like with the idea, my own identity of like what does it mean to be Bhutanese, right? Because as much as I enjoyed being having that special like being that only Bhutanese student there, there was also a bit of a pressure to represent a whole country, right? So people would see me and like this is a Bhutanese student. This is whatever actions I took, I felt like that was a representation of what Bhutan would be in the eyes of the others. So while I was like having this internal monologue, like struggling with like, oh, but who am I? Do I have the rights to represent Bhutan? And it was a bit of a like a rebellious phase for me. So like me coloring my hair and not looking like a standard, like just looking very different from whatever. Like it was part of like that rebellious phase. So I just didn't want to stick to this idea of like okay, if I have to look a certain way, I have to speak a certain way, I have to be a certain way in order to represent who I was. And just it was just me like really trying to experiment with my own identity as well.
Hearing from you, Sonam, it feels like I think you always wanted a voice for telling that all that you've gone through. So it's
Mhm,
very depictive from your pictures and the way you're expressing yourself, that how that internal struggle portrayed
mhm,
the kind of outer appearances we try to change. So it's that's really important, and to note this thing and keep it as a point that yes, of course, it's not
mhm,
always the bright and the bold outside that always is
mhm,
beautiful. It's an internal struggle, a phase, and a transition that people go through, which basically turns them
mhm.
and turns the whole personality over the period of
Right.
time. So I
Mhm,
think people don't realize that fact, and I think you have actually gone through a lot in terms of transiting, which is very difficult to accept.
mhm. It's definitely true because by then in Japan people knew about Bhutan, so people had kind of like ideas or stereotypes about what a Bhutanese is, or even if it's not Bhutanese, or like you're from a developing country, right? You're supposed to like sometimes getting asked very shallow questions like, oh, I didn't know they had like cell phones, and I didn't know they had like smartphones in Bhutan, or like asking like, oh, Bhutanese people like do they have like dark hair color as well, or I thought it was only Japanese. Like those type of sometimes like people are there can it's okay to be curious, but sometimes people can come out very condescending as well. Some like especially if it's a genuine question, I'm more than happy to like kind of say like, oh no, it's not like that, kind of treat them more. But rather people wanted to kind of be like, hey, I know about your country and it's this, right? Like without even trying to understand, or it felt very shallow. And I felt like people were projecting their ideas on me of like what a Bhutanese as a Bhutanese, what I was supposed to be as a Bhutanese. And as you can see in the middle photo as well, like there was like a certain part of me rebelling to the point that like I felt like I didn't really represent what other Bhutanese felt like. So this was a gathering where Bhutanese people are invited, and you can see them clearly not in a traditional dress as well. So that was like because in front of other Bhutanese people, I felt like I wasn't Bhutanese enough for them because they would have certain banters, jokes, and like things that to talk about. They would like talk about certain people that I couldn't relate to. So having that type of experience, like now and then, I kind of felt like, okay, when I tell Japanese people I'm Bhutanese, they think I'm Bhutanese, but in front of Bhutanese, I kind of feel like the fake Bhutanese. So that was like some sort of kind of struggle with myself there.
Very nice. Sonam, I think we have started to see a different picture of yours from the very beginning as we began. I think we had a different picture, and now we are gradually transiting into a different phase where we are deeply understanding your emotions and your transactions and how did you adjust to different words. It's very easy to say that we are a third culture kid, but transiting it, adjusting to it, and accepting it, I think
Mhm,
that's the biggest thing as an individual, that possibly people don't see what
mhm,
is visually appealing to us.
mhm,
So that's just incredible to know, and there are very beautiful, bright, bold pictures of yours. So I think that's the internal struggle that has been reflective, and we see a very calm and composed Sonam now, which is and years of experience, I believe. So it's beautiful to see the transition, Sonam. I'm really glad to know these things about yourself. And as I told you, as you told about Bhutan, the purpose of adding those pictures was that only that you very clearly stated that it's the village part of Bhutan.
Right.
So that was the reason I wanted to mark to the audience that there is different worlds, right? Within a world there is a different worlds, of course. And even there is an urban part to Bhutan which possibly should not be stereotypical about it being just traditional and temples and monks. It's a world way beyond it, and we need to embrace that part of Bhutan as well, which is very rightly quoted by you as well. Right. I think we can move ahead. There's more to know about Japan and her story of after the university life. Moving ahead, Sonam. So, how are you able to associate with Japan today?
So yeah, first and foremost, is the home to Studio Ghibli, the animation studio that I grew up with, and that was like one of the places that I wanted to work at as an animator. So I once dreamed of becoming an animator. Unfortunately, this is not the case right now, but yeah. Other than that, it's been. I think it also helped because. Of I look Japanese, but I'm not Japanese. So sometimes like I do understand that certain foreigners experience a certain type of difficulties here just by the outwards experience, but I think I was able to kind of hide behind how I look. As long as I don't open my mouth and I don't tell people my name, I kind of get to go away, like get away with things. Uh, I kind of put up that recycling picture as a reminder because when I first moved to Japan, it was a struggle. Like I think I almost had so much anxiety trying to separate my garbage. And for people who are not aware, Japan recycles and separates their garbage. And just even within my own house, I have three different bins to separate like burnables and like non-burnables plastic. And there's like a 5 days a week. You have different types of waste that you throw out. So, but when I first arrived, I almost had so much anxiety and almost like near panic attack trying to figure out what went where. Like, oh, this huge box, where do I throw it? Is it burnable or non-burnable? That was a struggle because I didn't speak the language. I didn't understand anything. I had to try opening a bank account. I had to try, renting an apartment with zero Japanese. And the funny part is, I didn't have anybody here that I could ask for help. I had to do everything from scratch. So I spent so much time with Google. Google's back then. Google Translate wasn't even working perfectly. So I had to Google phrases of like, how do I say this? And then, look for Google, like a search results to be able to communicate. So at 19, I was struggling a lot in a different country, in a different language, of course. But that also really helped me like shape into who I am. And, I kind of, as much as it was a struggle, I came to love the place more because I was like, oh, I've managed to settle here all by myself as well. So, yeah, that's how I for me like that's how Japan feels now.
It's really fascinating. I would like to know more about it, Sonam. So, you mentioned that the bins are at your homes also, it's in your
Mhm.
houses as well.
Right.
And why is it so? And how has it been accepted by everyone in the culture?
Hmm. So recycling, Japanese people really, in Japan, recycling is a huge thing. Uh, I think depending on which prefecture or like which town you are, it can get really strict as well. So it is separating recycling is taken seriously because some of when you some waste are actually used to produce energy, like they're incinerated. Not the best way of recycling, but there are other ways. So people are quite strict with it. It also kind of keeps the streets clean as well. And yeah, I think what used to be scary is if you don't separate your garbage properly, the garbage truck wouldn't pick it up. It'll just keep outside and have a sticker that says like, hasn't been separated properly. And where I live, there are like a bunch of elderly people who kind of check, and if you don't do it properly, they are like, they'll give it back to you and be like, you haven't separated, you got to separate it properly. So it's like a rule that everybody follows. But so because I had a very hard time understanding it, and when I first moved to Japan, and I struggled a lot. I had to like, I was in tears trying to figure out how to get rid of a like cardboard for my refrigerator that I just newly bought. And after that, then now from that like really tough experience, I love recycling now. Anything and everything, like I like separating. It's not that everybody has like three or four like separated garbages, but like for me, my I find joy in like washing my pet bottles and then like cutting off the label and throwing it separately. Also kind of makes me feel good about myself when I throw them. And yeah, it's I think overall it's to for the betterment of the environment as well, to like for sustainability and for to have a clean environment. So
I think it becomes a kind of a life pattern.
it does.
So that is why, and that's really important. That Japan schooling is really worthy, and it's really grounded and humble, which basically teaches the children to be adopting things at their homes as well, which is
Mhm.
basically beautifully translated, as you mentioned about the garbage bins at home are also being segregated in a similar way as it is in the public.
Mhm.
So I think learning begins at home, and that is
Right.
what the children have been learning here. Really beautiful. So it's an inspiring thing, and I think we should all learn from Japan how it's basically bringing up a change in the overall thought process. I must say. Moving ahead, I think you mentioned about Studio Ghibli. Could you please highlight a little bit more about the what exactly is Studio Ghibli, and how as an individual I can access it, or possibly can help me learn much better about the animation as you mentioned.
So Studio Ghibli is it is Ghibli in English but Ghibli in Japanese, but it's an animation studio that produced one of the best animations all over the world. So it is like well-renowned animation. Like I'm not sure if you heard of Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, all these animations. They're produced by the studio. It was founded by two people called Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. So I grew up with these. My I was actually introduced to Studio Ghibli's animation by my father. So I was, I think, 9, 10 when my father brought home some DVDs from his French coworker, and I saw my first Studio Ghibli movie, and I fell in love with the animation, the storytelling. It was very empowering, right? And most of the protagonists were these strong female leads. Like there's so many aspects of Studio Ghibli's like stories that is very relatable. It's family friendly, and it gives you a lot of courage as well. It's just really feel good type of like animation. So I kind of yeah, I wanted to kind of tell stories like that as well. So ever since I was a kid, I was writing anyway. So I wanted to be that type of like compelling storyteller, like have these visual animations to tell my story. So and that's how I also kind of continued art in high school as well. So I was doing my art like art and design for my GCSEs and A levels, and that was my ultimate dream of like, oh, maybe someday could work for the animation studio as well. I think I'm not sure if you can still, if you have Netflix, you should be able to watch Studio Ghibli's animation in um, everywhere except Canada and Japan, because I believe the licensings are different. So they don't. We unfortunately cannot watch Studio Ghibli movies on Netflix, but yeah, it's to I don't even know how to describe it, because I'm still so much in love with Studio Ghibli's animations, and like my whole identity now, like more than the TCK identity, my friends associate me with like just being a huge fan of Studio Ghibli. I have like tattoos that, like my whole body's like covered with tattoos of like Studio Ghibli's characters as well. So yeah, it is, but like at the end of the day, like it was one of the reasons why I kind of fell in love with Japan as well. Like you could see the simplicity of Japanese life through the lens of the animators there, the directors.
I think that is the reason because of which we have animation everywhere in Japan, even on the
Mhm.
airplanes.
Mhm.
So you will find it in the public transports. The airplanes are having your animated pictures, and it's a whole world of something that is not real. It feels
Mhm.
like you're in a very different world. So that is really something very beautiful to look forward to in Japan. And as
Mhm.
you beautifully said about cultural experiences, that how it has actually binded up your thought process. So. The whole identity of you has been framed around, and how Japan has actually framed, so the overall thought process that we have actually been looking into it. So I think the cultural surprises, you shared a number of cultural surprises, and even we are surprised now to be hearing a few of them. It's actually very few. There are much more to Japan. I'm sure about it. And also the learning curves, how possibly from Malaysia you transited to the university in Tokyo, and how basically your cultural identity was at stake at that point. How
Mhm.
do you struggle your internal spaces, and you found out a place of yourself as an individual in Japan. So I think that's incredible how you have been actually transacting your humble and your grounded nature. It's beautifully showing as a transition from places to places. Uh, and Here, as you mentioned about the Ghibli, as you said, studio. So even I'm fascinated to know more. Even I think the people who are watching here are, I must be sure about that they must already be sharing and googling about the studio, because the children are really fond of animations. So I think
Mhm.
most people must have already started searching about it, and
Mhm.
I'm waiting for the end of the session. Even I will be on it. Don't worry. So
Mhm.
I thank you so much for mentioning that. It's really it's one of the worlds that is very associated to me as well. So I would like
Mhm.
to explore about animation of more, right? So before moving ahead, you mentioned about the cuisine, and I can see a beautiful picture of really tempting the tray and is being set for us. So could you please mention about something that you mentioned about the Michelin stars? So please
Mhm.
tell the audience what is a Michelin star restaurant, and why is Tokyo having more about it? So please a little bit highlight on that.
So for me, I'm not a an expert in Michelin Michelin reviews, but this is like if restaurants have certain like quality in their food and their it's if it meets a certain standard or they have compelling taste, the presentation, and that's how they're graded, and people will come and grade, and if you receive a kind of a Michelin star, you are kind of considered one of the best. So, yeah, all I'm aware is everywhere you walk in Tokyo, there are so many restaurants that have Michelin starred, and the Michelin star is like a standard across the world. So, yeah, like if you go to certain cities as well, you'll find Michelin star, which kind of it's like a guaranteed, like really good taste. Good quality meal, but there are have been some like disputes now these days, like there has been like certain restaurants might not necessarily meet, or they might kind of do bad after they receive a Michelin star. That's another story. But yeah, Tokyo is home to many Michelin starred restaurants, so that means Tokyo has a very rich culture in like food as well, and everybody knows Japanese food. But for me, what is endearing about Tokyo's food scene is the fact that they have food from all over the world. So I remember with my classmate in university, we were trying to kind of check off certain like cuisines off the map, because they had like Bulgarian cuisines, Mongolian, like all sorts of cuisines, and it's interesting because even Bhutanese restaurant, we have a Bhutanese restaurant in Tokyo as well. So it's you can almost find any cuisine of the world here. So yeah, it's a great place to be, and sometimes you don't necessarily have to go across the globe to eat a like local dish. You can actually find it here as well. So I think in a way I would say one of the perks of living in Tokyo is you can travel to a different country, just yeah, within like without actually having to travel to a different country. Mm.
That's really a warm and very driven feedback regarding the Michelin stars. Of course, everybody has heard a lot about the restaurants, and yes, we do look forward to be visiting them, of course. But yes, Tokyo being having the most of the Michelin stars. So why do you think the food, or basically the taste, stands quite different for Tokyo? So have you experienced a kind of a distinction in terms of your food in Qatar, or from the Bhutanese food that you have actually experienced?
Mm. Uh, yes, definitely. I would say this is what I feel as well. And like Qatar food, to a certain extent, I enjoy it. In Qatar, like a lot of Arabic food, like shawarma. I'm like, work on. I've just thought of it right now. It's making me salivate. But yeah, yeah, it is. But for me, like the taste of think food in Tokyo definitely feels like very homely as well. Bhutan, we're not known for having a variety of cuisines. We have very basic, standard, like our ingredients are salt or like salt and chili peppers, right? That's the most of how most of our like dishes taste of, which is of course it's endearing. It's a nostalgic taste to me, but with Japanese food, it's variety, right? It feels like it's made with love, like it's actually made with care. Some places that I visit, I can taste a lot of industrial cooking. Like it kind of feels like people just threw frozen, like frozen food, and then just decide to put it on a plate and give it to you. But in Japan, like especially if you go to like small restaurants, smaller like smaller eateries, it just feels like people take pride in what they make as well. You can feel the sense of pride in like just serving the dish itself. So, of course, there are other chain restaurants that could taste like also industrial cooking as well. But for me, it's never been like it's always been at Tokyo. I always feel like it feels like it was cooked at home, like made with love.
That's really interesting to know, Sonam. So I think, being a food critic yourself, I think you can best explain the distinction between the food that you have tasted. Before I move ahead, I would like to mention to the audience that Sonam has some surprising element to show that is coming up next, and even I am really looking forward to her the part of animation, that how she has brought it into the picture and in life. Before moving ahead, Sonam, I have few comments for you. I think it will be appreciative, and as you read about them. So we have one of Sonam's known, so who have actually been mentioning hello Gummy, good luck, and as Gummy is basically, Sonam would like to mention that what is Gummy all about.
So yeah, Gummy is I would say my online name as well, and I'm also known as Gummy by my friends who don't call me by my government name, which is Sonam Choden. So it's a nickname I've had since high school as well. So I have friends in Qatar that calls me Gummy. I have friends in university that calls me Gummy. I have also certain Bhutanese friends here that do call me Gummy, and my family, my extended family, also calls me Gummy. So I'm actually there's like sometimes it feels like Sonam is not my name as well because as I'm not sure how aware you are, but like Sonam is a very common name, right, in Bhutan as well. So there used to be so many Sonams, like especially Sonam Choden is a common name, and I do remember when my friends tried to look me up on Facebook when Facebook first started, they were adding every random Sonam Choden there was, and I had to find a way to kind of make myself like different, stand out as well. So yeah, back then but that wasn't Gummy back then. I kind of changed my name to like Sonam something teriyaki just so that people could figure who I was. But just to talk about Gummy itself, it's the name that I also really identify with as well. A lot of people in Bhutan, I think, know me as Gummy more than they know me as Sonam because again, there's so many Sonams.
So I think that's the name very well associated with your presence, of course, and we even can associate you and mention to you the next feedback and the comment that has come from the section. So we have Jimmy in Japan, and been mentioning to you what a beautiful journey, Sonam. Thank you for sharing such an inspiring story with the world. You're truly amazing person. Love your childhood pictures. So, so we have more appreciations pouring in the chat box. I'll be showing you with time. But and there are many questions as well. I must mention you that. So
Okay.
please, you have to be ready with the questions. In the end, we'll be taking up. Okay. So further moving ahead, I think let's move on to the most interesting part of the session that we were actually looking ahead is the world of animation that Sonam is going to drive us into it right now. So moving to Japan, Sonam has showed the transition, that how she transited and Malaysia, and then entering into Japan, how university, and she took up a schooling, and how her education has framed her career further into it. So when we talk about living in Japan and her personal growth and experiences, how has Japan been able to specifically develop you or make you more independent? The idea of self expression has developed over the period of time. So how
Mhm.
has Japan served you with the opportunities or self beliefs that has given you a platform that you are in today? Because we are going to move on to the animation part. So before moving on to that, we, the audience, would really like to know how has the base, as you already mentioned about the studio, Ghibli, but furthermore also ahead, that what were the opportunities that served you in Japan that ultimately has landed up you here?
Likewise. To yeah, so to talk about kind of okay, I guess I could talk about the pandemic as well, but to start off with, the way Japan helped me with my self expression is, you know, I think back in Bhutan and all that, the idea of, like, you know, tradition and culture was something like very rigid, very strict. It was not, you're not allowed to evolve with time. So like there were like of course like elderly people in the community who did not like but younger Bhutanese people experimenting with the culture and tradition, right? You're supposed to wear your clothes a certain way. Like a lot of preservation, like there was like a lot of voice for preservation and conservation of tradition and culture, but it was not for, it was never for evolution. So but being in Japan and seeing how Japanese people have evolved with their culture, they take care of it, they preserve it, but you know, culture changes with time as well. So, you know, how kimonos now become patterns for like blouses, right? And how, yeah, like even anime and all, they started off, even there are animations regarding like traditional historical figures. So Japan kind of gave that freedom of being able to own your culture and tradition, and using whatever medium you could like to express your uh, culture and tradition. So for me, it kind of also helped me kind of, I would say, reconcile with my Bhutanese identity as well, and especially expressing who I was as a Bhutanese person. And to start off with, I think this is the slide with. So I went to graduate school right after I graduated from my bachelor's, and I was back then. I was actually studying. My plan was to study international development, and during that time, or what originally was started off as like a 1 month of research, my field research in Bhutan, I, because of the pandemic, I ended up kind of staying for 11 months. So during the time that I was in Bhutan, during that I was taking my classes online. I was also working remotely, part time for the current job. I was still a part timer back then, and I was researching with an NGO in Bhutan, and I was also involved in a lot of voluntary activities. So during this was like the first time I kind of went back to Bhutan after a long period of time, or like when I used to visit Bhutan back in the days when I was in undergrad, or when I was in high school, it was always for like 2 weeks, or uh, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks type of trip. But this was the first time since I was in Japan that I was able to stay there for a long time, and I think that made me kind of understand more about my like, I think my story or like my identity better. So I was there to I was there to study, and I was there to kind of learn about Bhutan, not just like showcase about Bhutan in my research, but in order to showcase about Bhutan, I had to kind of understand Bhutan all over again. And this was like, I think, the best time, although I know the pandemic was not the best time for many people. It was also the first time that I felt very connected with my roots as a Bhutanese. And yeah, some of the photos here you can see I was volunteering at a farmer's market. I was helping out. I went with a couple of kids to clean up a stream, and we won an award. We won some money, which we used to then volunteer at the shelter. And all while I was doing all that, I was also kind of attached to the NGO and kind of working on different projects with them. And in the end, I graduated. And I think when I graduated, I felt like Baton allowed helped me graduate as well. And yeah, that's a picture of my graduation photo from my master's.
It's incredible, Sonam. I must say it's quite humble and yet it's very powerful. So even in the smaller worlds and smaller words that you're reflecting here shows a bigger impact, and it shows that how your the culture of Bhutan that has left deeply rooted in you brought up a change for you in Japan.
Mhm.
So it can actually show that.
It was, I think, especially kind of being able to talk to like the younger generation in Bhutan, really kind of made me understand or reconcile like my love and hate with my own identity. Because till then, like my idea of what being a Bhutanese was like these, comments under Facebook like forums of like, oh, a Bhutanese person shouldn't do this. Like, if you're a Bhutanese, you shouldn't be doing that, and like those type of like. Thing people strangers online telling me what it was like to be a Bhutanese, right? And then like actually interacting with the younger generation there and seeing like these like younger generation very passionate about what they do. For them, like they weren't really struggling with their identity, they were struggling with other things, but for them it was, they cared so much about their country, the environment, like they were passionate about things, right? Which at the end of the day, I felt like that mattered more than like the whole, like, what does it mean to be a Bhutanese, or like what can you do to like, you know, uh, so yeah. So I think had I not had the opportunity to actually talk to like the younger generation there, I still would have been had a very different view of how I saw Bhutan from my own lens.
Right. So I think working in the NGOs and being connected and grounded has actually served the purpose, and it's quite like beautiful and inspiring to watch this contribution to how the world we are being giving and we get it back in abundance. That's how beautifully been portrayed here, and there are some incredibly beautiful pictures. I must say I'm still being fascinated with the hair color. Some really nice hairstyles you have actually tried, and I'm just transacting into the different hairstyles in each of the pictures. Right, quite motivating, right, and quite radiant. I'm getting quite impressed with this, of course. Right, it's been inspiring journey, Sonam. I can see how beautifully you are been transiting into a world, possibly just because by small steps that you've taken in your journey ahead. And furthermore, as you mentioned about um, the origination and reaching up to Japan, could you please highlight a little bit more on your the personal experiences about being in Japan and how it has basically framed your outlook or a vision? As you mentioned that you have been a reason for to work with the younger generation or been an inspiration for them. Many people watching you today are also looking you as an inspiration. It's not an easy thing to transit into a different world and just get adjusted. There's a lot of hardships and there are a lot of challenges that come along the way. So how has your self expression been through this journey?
It's not taking things for granted, I would say. In Japan, because things were so different from, and I started from scratch as well. It was for the first time like something that I felt like I owned the experience, and I worked hard enough to be able to do the things and be the person I was. Because to a certain point, I think in Bhutan, had I lived, I do still think about like in an alternate world. Had I lived in Bhutan, I would have had a very privileged mentality, because as you know, in Bhutan we have free education till until 12th grade. And like my parents were also in a good place, right? So I feel like I would have kind of expected everything to fall in my lap. I would not have worked hard as I did in Japan. So, and in Bhutan, I would say it's a very small community, and it's a tight knit community as well. So you kind of get used to the things. You Everybody's there to help. The help is really, it's everybody's helpful and it's great at certain times, but it also can spoil you because you become very dependent on other people as well. But moving to Japan was, trying to navigate in a different culture, different language, and it just felt like everything that I did was like I had full control. I had to work hard for it, and sometimes, of course, it didn't work out, and I didn't like, there was a lesson to be learned even within the failures. So yeah, those were something that I felt kind of helped me shape up, and also appreciation. I think this is not just with Japan, but once after we moved to Qatar, the fact that my school was not education wasn't free. Like we had to pay for our school fees, and it was so expensive. And my father doing all the work, of course, like it was paid by his hard work, right? So the appreciation for education, for like the learning opportunities, those were things I think I would have taken for granted had I not moved away. And yeah,
So gratitude is the key to the growth that possibly can help us reach places. So that's
definitely.
the best takeaway that we can have through this. As you shared about a number of steps that you've taken for the very early years in your career that helped you stabilize yourself. How has the future in the career growth and what were the future opportunities that were been available to you which helped you grow further as an individual?
So to talk more about my career growth, so like the whole reason I got into international development and all was because I, to a certain extent, felt like I could do more with the international community, do something back home, and again, I think there was a good and bad part to it because part of me was again having been the only Bhutanese person kind of with my friend circle, with my in my education system. I always felt like I had to do something good for my like community, have to represent, and I kind of navigated my life around being that person. So at some point, like work trying to work in international development and international relations, it felt like I wasn't doing it for myself, but I was doing it for the approval of others, for like them to say, look, this person, comes from this small country, she's doing great things. And these were like in the back of my head, this was always there. And but as I was graduating, I realized opportunities were limited. Like if you want to be, I wanted to be part of the United Nations. I wanted to make a difference, but at the same time, I realized that because I was a third culture kid, I had grown up and I wasn't back in Bhutan. The opportunities for me to represent my country is very limited. And if I were to join the UN in Japan, I would need to have that proficiency, the fluency in Japanese, which I still did not have. And so there were so many, I felt like everywhere I looked, it kind of felt like as I tried, but it just wasn't like, it just wasn't working out. But my career in tech it was coincidence. It was not like I intended to go in there fully, but there were certain things that made me realize once I actually tried it. So during the 2 years that I was in grad school, I was actually part-timing. I had my friend from university just hit me up one day and like he was like, "Hey, you want a part-time job? You like writing, right? Do you want to write for the blog as a part-timer for the company I'm part-timing at?" And I was like, "Sure, let's go." I got in and I became interested in it. I applied and I got the job, and so that was the first time that I actually got into the tech industry. And honestly, it was funny because I always saw myself as like a very liberal arts type of person. I never thought I would ever see myself in the tech industry and like anything to do with like corporations and like corporate life. So my life had always been about like NGOs and um, like NGOs groups, like online groups, and then all of a sudden I'm working part-time in this tech company. And some part of me, when I first started, I was like, I didn't know so many things. I like, trying to figure out new tools, new services, how to work them. It was such a learning curve for me. But I realized that I actually enjoyed it. Like for me, more than anything, it was not the subject, but the process of like learning, starting from zero and going to like 100. And I started enjoying like learning about the new technologies and learning about learning about just tech in general. And while I was doing part-time job, like doing my part-time job in the tech company, I was also studying and doing working on international development. And the biggest realization was during that pandemic when I was doing my field research, I felt like I had hit a wall with my research. I felt like I was doing women and children's rights, and I felt very like I had gained enough knowledge. Like at some point, I felt like I was giving more opinions than learning more, because by the time I had like really mugged up everything about women's rights like around the world and like issues and like so I was starting to get a little bit bored with that. And it was also really funny because there was another intern at that NGO who said, "Who died and made you Mother Teresa?" And like saying like you don't have to. Because in the back of my head, I was like, I have to do something good for the community. I always have to give back to the community. I need to prove myself that I can give back to the community. But the reality was like you could try really hard, but it's really hard to change the system. It's hard to make that impact, right? If the intentions are there, it's good, but you don't have to be there struggling to like make a difference. You can make a difference from so many things. And all of a sudden I realized that I had put up this facade through my entire university days because of wanting to be that one Bhutanese, like being that one Bhutanese representative, wanting to show that I would do good things and great things in life. I felt like I was going after something for the sake of proving it to others rather than doing things that I was enjoying. And with tech, what I found was just pure like joy and fulfillment. It's like learning so many new things. And every time I learned something new, it was like, wow, like my world has expanded even further. So yeah, and then this is right after almost around the end of the pandemic, and I was almost graduating as well. And I decided to go back to Japan, and I was like, I actually like working for the tech industry. And it's hard because now like I am below average when it comes to people who are already in tech, but at the same time, like I can try catching up. So that's how I ended up with a career in tech as well.
That's a beautiful journey, I must say, Sonam. So, as you mentioned, that the change isn't changing of the world is quite difficult. So, I believe that the only change that you can bring is a change of self,
Mhm.
and that is where the change begins in the world. So, if you began a new vision and a new thought process, I think that is going to change the masses. So, that is from where we have to begin. Looking
Mhm.
at the pictures, I think we can see a differently transformed Sonam for what we saw in Bhutan, and it's more mature, it's more professional now to the initial Sonam we saw in Japan. I think that the world has changed completely now. So the pictures
Mhm.
quite depict your presence in the web summit and
Mhm.
you taking over conferences, or you are a part of a company, Japanese company right now.
Right.
So your role in the company and you been there at the scene and to Japan cultural symposiums and seminars. So the world has drastically changed, and I don't believe you have reached from 0 to 100. I think it's 1,000 right now. So the transaction is been purely quite genuine, and it is reflective through your journey. So could you please highlight a little bit more to the audience, because they're really keen to know about the opportunities been available in Japan
Mhm.
and how tech has possible career, which possibly the youth will be watching right now. Will be really looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you. I guess, yeah, this is a perfect segue to kind of introduce the job market in Japan as well. So, I am what you call a tech recruiter. So, I actually recruit engineers from all over the world. And part of my job is to actually go around the world, attending tech conferences and promoting opportunities with the company that I work at right now. And yeah, mainly hire global. I mainly hire global engineers as well. So I mean, for me, I felt like this was a perfect job because of the background that I came from, like always being in an environment with people from different cultures as well. My When I first kind of thought of graduating and getting a job in Japan, I actually dreaded the idea of working at a traditional Japanese company, like mainly because of the language, because I felt like I could express myself better in English than I could in Japanese. And I was like, I would struggle in terms of my career if I had to work in a Japanese company just simply by the language. And I do understand a lot of people actually have that concern as well, because Japan, you might seem like, they do mostly everything in majority in Japanese, but I work for a Japanese company that is that's official language is in English. And yeah, so there are opportunities as well for anybody wanting to move to Japan as well, to work in an environment, in a speaking environment, even in Japan as well. And yeah, it's also, yeah, it's fun as well. For it's a part of my job is, of course, meeting a lot of people from different countries as well, and different places. But at the end of the day, everybody has a common goal and common interest, which is everybody's in love with Japan and want to move to Japan. So always being able to talk to people who are interested in moving to Japan, I just like want them to know, like, here, I'm an example of someone who always wanted to move to Japan, and I'm here. So if I can do it, you can definitely do it. So
Right, Sonam. So I think now, provided you have actually provided given a platform for the people to know about the career opportunities in Japan,
mhm,
and it gives a diverse opportunity to everyone that they can apply for in Japan.
mhm,
We really look forward that people are really going to be pinging you forward for this to how they can. I'm sure they must already be doing
mhm,
it. So being in the recruiting part, I think it's a great responsibility for you to streamline a lot of resumes and identify the best in your team. Of course, that's the role that you have been actually currently having, and
mhm.
it demands a lot of streamlining analytical skills and understanding of the individuals, which is very nice. We wish you all the best for that.
Thank you.
I think we have moved on to the most interesting part now, which possibly I've been waiting for. It's personally my favorite, right? So we are going to be discovering the part of art that Sonam is going to bring to us. So
Mhm.
let's have a look at how Sonam has brought up the idea of animation and anime into the life. So we talk about Sonam bringing the life of animation in the real sense, where she has been crafting the artwork. And what is the purpose? Where she has been showcasing, Sonam is going to be sharing with us. Sonam, the stage is all yours, please.
Thank you. Yes. So I think you've already seen my Picasso cat drawing from my days in Bhutan to like my art in Qatar, and also now you're seeing my art in Japan. So art has been very personal for me my entire life. It's like it's always been my hobby ever since I was a kid, and I think for a while during my university days, I did kind of briefly stop doing art as well. So one thing when I started working in the tech industry, when I decided to kind of change from the international development field to into tech, that was I told myself that I was going to pursue things that used to bring me joy, which was playing video games and drawing. And yeah, like especially during the pandemic as well. So I actually have, again, Bhutan to thank for that as well, because I picked up, actually, like, because till then I was drawing, I was scribbling, but I'd never had a proper like style, or I didn't have an identity in my own art. I would draw a lot of anime stuff and anime figures and anime related, but there was never a consistent theme. But it was during the pandemic when when I moved to Bhutan for that 11 months, and I kind of saw Bhutan through a whole different lens. And that's also when my appreciation for like the Bhutanese like mask and traditional Bhutanese icons started, taking shape as well. And with that, I started, yeah, kind of diving deeper into art again. And I started my art account using Bhutanese art, Bhutanese mask as my main theme. And these are some of the pictures you can see as of now, that's on the screen.
Sonam, this is really the fascinating. I'm really looking forward to be watching this more.
Mhm.
And as you told, because of which we highlighted this in the very beginning, that we were talking about the art of Bhutan, where you actually
Mhm.
draw the sketches, and the same thing in Qatar also. You have been continuing doing that, and I think that's the outcome that we can see in Japan. So we have reached the final destination where the third culture kid has actually brought up the idea where she started in the first, and she has brought it into the picture in the last destination. Not of course the last one, but yes, of course, a middle transitory one that we have been actually facing now. So it's a beautiful creative art.
Thank you.
Talking about it, how has art been expressive to you? And how has the Japan culture been supporting this? Because you see a quite, as you were mentioning, that it's a transition in terms of the cultures also. So how
Mhm.
has Japan been supportive of your career outlooks, like your sticker art? You talk about streaming, you talk about fandoms, or was it a challenge for you to stand out to all these things?
It, I think it wasn't. I wouldn't say there were any challenges. It was the challenge would have been my own limitations in terms of drawing. But as you can see, like on the screen, that black hoodie, that was one of my first few attempts. My first attempts during university to start an online shop. So I attended a Buddhist. It was a study on Buddhism, so Buddhism studies in class, and I learned about the word samsara, and it was so funny because being a Bhutanese, like Bhutanese, it's like very closely tied to being a Buddhist, but I wasn't really practicing my religion. I didn't really associate myself. So learning about Buddhism from like in a class was quite strange because I'd heard the word samsara so many times, but at the same time I didn't know anything about it. So I remember it's still a very embarrassing memory, but like in this class filled with other students, like I was sitting in the like front row, and I remember the professor picking up his hand, like asking, like, "Do you know what samsara is?" And I was so confident for some reason, thinking like, "I know this. This is my culture." And I picked up my hand and I said the completely wrong answer. And but at the same time, then he corrected me, so that's when I was like, wow, that actually sounds really beautiful. So I actually started using the word samsara to create this brand called Samsara Squad. And in another class, I was busy learning how to set up Shopify, like, set up payment system, payment like newsletter, and which was nice because like Japan allows you to do that. You have access to that in Japan, and like even printing hoodies out as well. Like it's just like right there. Like I can access any like online stores, and then I can get it delivered within like 2-3 weeks for a sample. So it has been very positive. It has been very like encouraging being in an environment where I can produce art and an indie medium, and I can actually try to monetize art as well. I just like thinking about it. Like I know that a lot of Bhutanese artists would struggle. There are like some amazing Bhutanese artists, and I just think of like the opportunities. If only they were given the same type of like if they had the same access like I do, they would be making way more amazing art, right? Like, and they would have actually reached a bigger audience as well. But yeah, like for me, again, being a Bhutanese in Japan as well, I still like as much as I do try to represent like the Bhutanese part of my identity, like the whole expression, being able to express these type of art is thanks to the Japanese environment I am in, which is again like being able to appreciate your culture and still like transform and evolve with your culture. And like the way you can conserve like preserve your culture is actually by sharing it in a different form and making it relatable with people who are not just Bhutanese but also who are like non-Bhutanese as well.
I think Sonam, the art speaks more. That word often the words can't express because it's quite relatable to many. They have been able to find a reflection in the images, and I think that's the most beautiful part. More to coming up to the challenges, as you said, Japan is quite supportive to the kind of art and animations, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of platforms that possibly provide people with opportunities. Would like to discover more on the sticker art animator you are, and I would really like the audience to watch over the next slide, because that's how Sonam has brought something into the real life. She has brought her ideas of animation into the real world picture, and that is what we are really looking forward to. So Sonam, please, I would like to just showcase everyone the next innovation and practical approach that possible Sonam has brought into the animation world.
Hello, do you personally know someone at work that just can't seem to stop talking and does not get any work done? Well, we have the perfect gift for them. I made these stickers, gummies, original design, certified yappers. They come in two different sizes and they're perfect for someone that just comes to work to spill the tea. Tag someone you think is a certified yapper and deserves this title. They are also coming to Baton very soon, in like a couple of days.
Yes, Sonam. So, could you please stress a little more about it for the audience to know? Yeah, please.
So, right, but stickers, I started designing and printing stickers, I believe 2 years ago. So, from what initially started out as my Instagram art page, I kind of started wanting to, share my stickers as well, art in forms of stickers, and I was able to print them. And this one that you see on the screen right now is actually part of my latest 5 designs that I actually created before I went for a visit to Baton a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, it's I try to incorporate, of course, the Bhutanese mask, but I also make it very relatable to people who are, corporate worker, like corporate girlies, like I am. So some of these now they have actually wordings like certified yapper. I am someone who cannot stop talking, so I created this, and I know that there are people out there who cannot stop talking either. So yeah, it's an art that I want to share with everybody, regardless of where they come from, but also kind of represent a little bit of the Bhutanese part in me. And yeah, and from stickers, I like people then started asking me like, hey, do you do shirt designs as well? Do you do like pins as well? So I've been exploring with shirt designs. So you can see the two shirts over there, the purple and the pink shirt, and that's also with my one of my latest newest design as well. And the only like unfortunate part is within Japan I'm able to, or like overseas I'm able to ship them. I can, people can order and ship them, but again, Bhutan being in such a landlocked country and having like the postal system isn't the perfect one. Every like new year I send postcards home, like hand drawn, not hand drawn, but like personal original postcards home, and I heard that it has not reached anybody right now. And so we have a really bad, I would say not the best infrastructure when it comes to postal. And I know that a lot of people would actually like, in Bhutan would be like, happy to have these designs, but unfortunately, yeah, still trying to figure out the logistics for the sending it to people I really wish, like, hope to see wearing and using them.
We are really looking forward, Sonam, to your page and order few of them, of course, because they really look. I think it's quite relatable. It's not a very common ones that possibly people can, and being one with a creative sense and really love the artwork. It's very important for us to explore more about these. So I am really looking forward for sure. I don't know about the others, but yes, of course, I am really fascinated to know more about it. Talking about the sticker art, it's one of the industries very growing these days, but not many people talk about it. So how to publicize this thing, and what has your been strategy to bring it into the market?
So for me, my art is not something that I hope to make like a living out of. Like, it's not something that I want to, kind of quit my day job over. It's something that I feel passionately about, and I just want to share with the people who actually who love them. So this is why I've been the most terrible content creator slash like, PR person for my own art. My art Instagram art like page also does not have consistent updates as well. But from there I've realized that there are people who really like, enjoy like my art, and they're very supportive. So I would go radio silent for months, but these sometimes, like, as soon as I post, like, there's immediately reaction from the followers, and it kind of makes me very grateful to have such support. At the same time, I do feel terribly guilty for not being able to live up to that expectation. But at the end of the day, I feel like the way I try to, yeah, kind of spread my stickers, it's through just like, not through trying to mass produce them and like trying to create a business out of it, but just sharing with people who can identify with it and, yeah, like love them and
Art is specifically not just in your hands, Sonam, it's in your heart, and that is why it takes a lot of time to create a masterpiece. And
Mhm,
of course, when it comes out into the public, the people are showing a lot of appreciation. So art is not a day thing. It requires a lot of precision, it lots detailing, and of course, it takes time. So possibly your hobby has been turning out into something which people are actually really passionate about, and
right.
it's vision to the people that they can create business out of it.
Mhm.
So that's really important. Could you talk a little bit about how Twitch has brought up a change into your ideas of
Mhm.
artwork?
So speaking of accidental businesses, I would say Twitch was definitely something that I wasn't really seriously starting out on. I had a friend who was like, Twitch, like he watched Twitch a lot, and he was like, hey, you should go on Twitch. And since I liked playing video games, and as a kid I remember my mom clearly saying like, you can't make a career out of playing games, and it's quite funny now because now I play games on I play games terribly on Twitch, and I became a Twitch affiliate, so which means I get paid for having subscribers now, because it was not even intentional. I was on a stream, and then a famous like streamer, actually kind of raided my stream. So he brought in like 1,000 people in my stream, and then kind of next day I woke up. I was like, they were like, "Oh, congratulations! You've met all the requirements to be a Twitch affiliate. So now you're going to be monetizing off your stream." So it was a very it was a funny kind of a funny incident, but I honestly I have amazing Twitch community right now. I don't stream often, and I'm not a huge streamer. I've ghosted my stream for I think almost a couple of months now, but I have a Discord, and I have wonderful friends from the stream as the from Twitch itself. So thanks to them, I was able to build a computer. Like I was able to build my own PC, and that too while streaming, because I wasn't reading any of how to build a PC. They had to kind of teach me step by step through the chat. So it kind of goes back to again having that online community. Like when in Qatar, I had my self a novel, like the online community that I could call, like I kind of resonated and I could share my passion with. And right now, this community has just transformed into the Twitch community that I have, into like a Discord community. And yeah, and so it's a nice like it's nice to get paid sometimes, that I can use that money to buy games and turn my hobby into a little bit of a little business. But yeah, but more than that, I think I've just found like really great people, amazing friends through the platform.
That's really nice, and I think it's an inspiration. You've given a vision to many people who are watching right now, that how you can possibly transform your passion into a purpose that is specifically your vision was not something to bring into the life as a business market, but
Right.
possibly it found a purpose, and that is where it is bringing and changing lives for sure. So this is really nice, Sonam, and I think it's everybody is watching is getting an idea that how possibly they can bring in new ideas
Mhm.
and turn their purpose into something bigger that they have actually thought about. So it's really nice that you have shared. I think the transaction that you have shown is being one of an individual who has been gone through a lot of ups and downs, being to three countries in a different transition, in a different understanding the flavors, the art, the food, the clothing. It's all the more, it's just like a switch from one region to another. So how has your journey, and from being from the mountains to the desert, and now being to the Zen world, so how do you transit from Bhutan to to Qatar, and now to Japan. So, how are these transitions, and what were the challenges that you faced in all the three of them? Or possibly not just the challenges,
Mhm.
just a way of understanding that you tried to cope up over the period of time.
Mhm. Thank you for the question. I think yeah, it's really hard to put like explain, but it's definitely over the years there was a lot of struggle with identity. There was a lot of grievances as well. There was a lot of resentment, I think. But I think it's kind of like a journey as well. At the end of the day, it's to do with your age as well. You learn to kind of adapt because the struggles are basically lessons that just build a better you as well. So as shown on the screen, like it was a very different lifestyle, community, beliefs, like education system, right? And I did not breeze through it. I had the mind to be I was open-minded, and I had that thirst of wanting to adapt to it, but of course it wasn't always the easiest process as well. And at times I did doubt myself as well. There, I think it also at some point affected my personality too. Especially when it came to, I think the biggest would be the in communicating. So like in Bhutan, you're always like you speak warmly or respectfully, and kind of in Qatar, like I was too respectful, too polite to my teachers, and it was kind of really sad to see like my grade reports and my compared with my friends, where like my friends are like, oh, like the teacher would write like, oh, this person is like really good, she's like headstrong, she's really like she's a leadership, like leader, kind of that type of comments. And I would have a comment of like, she's a very polite and friendly, Sonam is a polite and friendly like student, Sonam is a very diligent. And I wanted to be more than just polite. So I think yeah, that was like the transition from being this quiet, polite person, like to wanting to express myself. I don't think I was able to fully do that until I went to Malaysia. That's where I felt like I felt more confident in who I was as well. That was moving from Bhutan, of course, it was fun, but there was a lot of like, I still kind of lacked, there was insecurities of like where I came from as well. And then all of a sudden then after moving to Japan, everything all of a sudden is indirect communication. There is like, it's non-confrontational. So if you are very direct in what you want, if you are, people kind of like move away as well, right? So and finding that balance was really important for me. And at some point there were times when I felt like I had to hold myself back as well, and I started doubting myself. And then there was this pressure of like wanting to adapt and wanting to kind of be kind of, it was like losing a sense of self every time I tried to adapt myself as well. But despite all these like challenges, I would definitely say that having that environment of diverse environment with like friends from different backgrounds really helped, because whether it be at school or work, yes, I had to maintain a certain level of way of I spoke, like interacting, but then I could always go back to my friends and just be myself. So with every challenges, there also came like a like good part to it as well.
I think Sonam, the transition has been incredibly beautiful for us to watch. And yes, of course, along with the transition comes the challenges. So
Mhm,
nobody talks about the challenge, we just talk about the outcomes, which is
mhm,
very important always to know. Transiting from Bhutan to Qatar and then to Japan, there are challenges that comes along the way. It's not always the merry, it is not
mhm,
always the brighter part that we have to see. And yes, of course, adapting to the society, adjusting, and yes, managing a lot of things on the journey is basically a part of it, which possibly
mhm,
many people don't talk about. And that is the reason that we are talking about here, not just to see just the brighter part, not just to see the kind of animated world that we are in,
mhm,
just to see that basically to reach there requires a lot of freehand sketching that we begin with, isn't
mhm,
it? So it's incredible to hear so beautiful stories from you, Sonam. I just this is the most candid discussion that possibly I've been having in all since all my sessions I have taken. So we till now we have discussed about so much about Japan, and then Qatar, and then we have talked about Bhutan also, and then you've discussed the challenges. I think we are just nearing to the end of our thoughts and discussions, but there is still so much to discuss. I think you will be able to know as you will be reading the comments. There are so many comments right now, so I'll be showcasing you on the screen, and that you will be able to answer. But
Wow.
before
Okay.
before we are ending up with our presentation or the our discussion and my questions for you, what is the one thing that you would like to give as a thought or an inspiration to the younger ones who are watching you, the younger third culture kids who feel that they are actually facing a struggle or
Mhm.
they are dealing with some kind of a challenges? So what is your giveaway before that we close the discussion part?
Okay. Of course, I think especially for the third culture kids out there who don't choose to move out of their places, this is on the screen. You can see something that I deeply resonated with me. It's a poem by Ioma. So Omibino is it's a Nigerian author. So that was something that really resonated with me when I first heard it. And it's like the saying goes, "So here you are, too foreign for home, too foreign for here, never enough of both." I actually had that as my first tattoo, but I could never like write the final word. I didn't want to say that I was never enough for both. I wanted to be enough for somewhere. So this is why it's a three-line tattoo on me right now. But my message would definitely be like, there are resources. It's okay. Like the struggle is always going to be there. The identity struggle of who you are when you're with like, a people like where your home country is, you would feel very distant and like disconnected. But at the same time, when you are overseas in your second culture or your third culture, you would feel like you don't they see you as a foreigner as well. So the struggle will always be constant. And even for me, even now, like I do, if I think deeply about it, I will still kind of feel a bit sad over it. I do kind of go down this rabbit hole of who am I, what am I. But having friends and family that cares about you regardless of who you are, it's really important. And I would say embrace every culture. Like it will always be hard to tell. I know the biggest question, like all TCKs fear, is where are you from, right? And then you always struggle, like, of like, do I tell you where I'm from and like my journey, or do you just want to know my passport country? But I don't necessarily identify as much with my passport country. So I think during when I was in university, I was going through that, like, where am I from, though, kind of question, and you'll have that, but I would say everywhere you've been, everywhere you've lived, that's where you're from. Everywhere you have friends, everywhere you have a piece of home, that's where you're from. So don't be afraid to give the whole long story. I was born here, but I was raised here. I moved over, like, I lived here for 3 years. I lived, then moved. It's completely okay to give the long story because there will be people who understand. There will be people, who share the same identity as you. And another advice is, especially if you have not chosen this lifestyle, I'm sure there will be resentment towards your parents. But the it's I would just like to say, don't resent your parents, because even for them, as much as you are trying to navigate in a different culture, your parents are also trying to navigate and learn as well. So be their partners, be their partners in trying to figure and navigate this new culture, new identity, and don't resent them too much. And of course, on the screen there are two more books that I really like. That really helped me understand better of like my struggles, which was like Third Culture Kids, David Pollock. That was like this is like the Bible for every third culture kid, and if you're a third culture kid, I would definitely recommend you to read it. If you are a parent of a third culture kid as well, definitely read it. Even if you aren't, you have friends or know anybody, you can definitely read it. And yeah, it really tells the different types of third culture kid, because as much as third culture kid is a term, every experience, every third culture kid has very different experience as well. And yeah, that's a very long message, but that's how I end my message to them.
I think, Sonam, you had so much to share that possibly we have not seen the track of time. Also, it's still so much to hear from you, and we are still ready to hear more from you because it's been so interesting to hear, and it's real. So your charismatic presence has actually made it quite charming and interested for us to be watching more of you. So before we end our discussion and take up the questions further, and which you can answer, how do people follow your creative journey? So please give them a chance to know you much better, and tell them that how possibly they can connect with you. So please, your insights on this.
So yes, I am throwing my art Instagram here. So this is you can follow me on my Instagram. You don't have to buy my stickers, but you can follow my art journey as well. I do have a personal Instagram as well, which you can see it through my art Instagram. So feel free. The other personal one is mostly memes and just posting, resharing. Very unrelated, not funny, but yeah, funny memes. So if you're also interested, definitely you can follow me there as well. But this is my art account. This is where I kind of put up my new designs as well. And find if you are interested in my art as well, you can check this one out. And yeah, that's all. That's where you can find me.
Quite interesting, Sonam. So all of you two can connect with Sonam to be knowing more about her journey, and how artist has the meet the practical presence in the world. It is also very important for everybody to know. And Sonam has shown a glance of her lifestyle from the place of birth to where she stands today, and how the journey has transformed her into a humble and a magnetic personality today, which is very important for us to see. And we have been a part of a journey. This whole session has been because of which we have been able to part of a journey, and we are able to understand Sonam better. So it's really interesting, and a really good takeaway today, because understanding the global world from a person who has presently lived it is something that is quite interesting and inspiring. So, Sonam, I think this is we are nearing to the end of our discussion, but that's not the end of the session, of course. Next comes is the questions, and possibly many of the questions have been pouring in. I would really like to raise, and one first question has been coming from your dear friend, of course. So, you used to watch TV in Hindi. Do you speak Hindi as well? And how is that different from your mother tongue? Can you also say some phrases and sentences in your mother tongue?
So, okay, there are two questions actually. So speak Hindi. I can actually understand Hindi a lot, because I watched Captain Planet, Hattori Hanzo, like all in Hindi as well. It's just I guess because I haven't really spoken it, I can't really form sentences, but I can understand most of what's being said. I think it's quite similar with Nepali as well, but Nepali, I think in Nepal it's quite different from the Nepali our Totsampas or like in Bhutan speak. So yep, and it's very different. I would say. I think so Dzongkha is my mother tongue, and Dzongkha is quite similar to Tibetan, except it's completely different as well. So and I can say some phrases. And this is also again, I'm not used to speaking Donka, so I did not really like. I'm out of practice, and I can say certain phrases, but it's not the best. I would say some of the phrases. This is funny because I was trying to actually learn how to introduce myself completely in Zonka, and it was a failure. But I can at least say kuzangpo. Ngagiming Sonam I, which is because hello, my name is Sonam.
So full marks for trying, Sonam. At least that you actually on a public forum you actually tried it. That means a lot. Coming up to the next is why does Bhutan have a gross national happiness? Are you really that happy there?
That's a great question. So, yeah, it really depends on what you define happiness as well, right? So, Bhutan, so the whole idea of GNH was started out with, when countries around the world was just trying to measure their GDP. So, our fourth king came up with, like, to measure a country's wealth is not just in the form of the domestic product, but actually in the well being and happiness of its people. So, that's how the gross national happiness, GNH, idea was formed. And so, in all honesty, are they happy there? It would be very subjective. It's, Bhutan, like any other country, also struggles from modern societal problems, like unemployment, like there is. people, like, young generations leaving abroad, and especially because we speak English as well. Like, there are a lot of like migrations, people moving overseas to study and work as well. So, and I would say people in, I cannot really say whether they're happy or not, but I would, yeah, it's really hard to say whether they're really happy, because everybody has their own struggles. Everybody has, something that that makes them happy as well.
So the purpose was to bring into the mindset of the people that
Mhm.
there is another index to be measured, and that is happiness. It's
Correct.
not just a country being measured on the
Mhm.
basis of the products that it is producing or its status around the world. Happiness should also be one of the parameters because of which it was being introduced,
Mhm.
right? And it's a very beautiful thought also, because the beauty of life, we sometimes forget that we need to be happy.
Mhm.
Okay, the next question is which sport did you play in the school? Do you still?
Oh my goodness. As when I was in Bhutan in primary school, I tried a little bit of football. I got smacked in the face by a football once, and I don't think I've ever had my continued my journey from there. But I'm more of an indoor person. I play a lot of video games. I would say if we were to take video games into consideration, I have played tennis, I have rafted, I have raced
Any
cars.
specific any specific games you would like to mention? The audience is really willing to watch.
Oh, okay. So if I stream, I usually stream really like fun, kind of calm games, because if I play the role playing games, I get too into it and I forget to interact with my viewers. But if it's like a very calm game, it's like Stardew Valley. I played that for, I think, for the past 2 3 years. I was playing it. It took me a long time to complete it. Um, yeah, and other games, I enjoy a lot of role playing games on my own time. So a lot of Final Fantasy. I think there is a new game called Expedition 33. My brother has been like just sending me random messages to just convince me to play. It's like reason two why you should play this game, and then next day will reason three why you should be playing this game. And so, yes.
That's really nice. Do you miss Lulu in Qatar? Do you? What the fascination for Lulu in Qatar is way different.
It is. Oh my goodness. I actually have a story about Lulu. So there was Lulu, like the hypermarket was, there was a second floor to it. And I briefly mentioned that I love eating pani puri. So my whole family, we enjoy eating Indian cuisine as well. But the thing is, we don't look Indian. So I clearly remember in middle school, we would go to this Indian restaurant above Lulu, and they would just people we would sit down and order our food, and everybody, all the families around us, would just stare at us eating Indian food. And I think they probably assumed that we were either Chinese or, not like East Asian, just eating, trying out Indian dishes. So it was it was always like an interesting interesting experience.
Right. So you're doing great, Sonam. You have a beautiful journey so far. What would you like to do in future?
Thank you very much. That's a great question. It's every time I feel like I'm discovering the things I'd like to do as well. For me, for my near future, I do want to do a lot of side quests. So try out every little thing. Maybe try volunteering. Also, I was having a conversation with my friend the other day. I said I wanted to try picking matcha leaves. And maybe probably trying to work at a farm. But the only thing is, I'm terrified of frogs. So
That's beautiful. Okay, how did your family react when you moved back from Malaysia to Qatar with plans for Japan?
this was, oh yeah, that was the biggest struggle as well, because for my father, and he was looking out for my best interest as well. So for my father during that time, he kind of decided that I would go to Malaysia, then go to Australia to complete my schooling. But I came back and I was like, I kind of quit uni there. I want to go to Japan. And he was he was quite a bit disappointed. I know that. And I remember him saying like, okay, going forward, like now whatever you do, it's on you, right? You've like taken the choice to choose your own path, so it's up to you. So it was, I think, a bit, he was a bit disappointed, but at the same time he still loved me as his child because he financially supported my journey to Japan. So as much as I had that kind of like restriction or the struggle in convincing him, he was still supportive of my decision. It's just he made it very clear that it was like I was responsible for myself going forward.
And how does your parents feel now?
Oh, this is why I always tell it's always very it's the greatest feeling when after I got into my university, my father was really proud. So hearing him talk about me getting into like the school that I got into with family, extended family, relatives, and all. You know how Asian parents Asian parents are. So especially because I got into my university is one of like the top three in Japan, like in from the private universities. So it was the greatest feeling of like being able to say like, hey, I did not disappoint you. So yeah, I hope and I think he's proud of me.
Okay. So, with the rise of AI and making Ghibli art using AI nowadays, I think it's quite in trend these days.
Mhm.
How do you feel about being an artist as well as a fan of the Ghibli art?
Thank you so much for that question because I was one of the first people like who immediately went to my family group chat and I was saying do not use that Ghibli like art for AI because it takes away the human like part of Ghibli art. And for me, like, yeah, it's a very sad thing, but but people who appreciate will appreciate the original Ghibli art will always appreciate, they love Ghibli for the meaning behind it, the art, the story behind it. And but at the same time, like there are people who just think the art is cute. They want to have something that's relatable. It's I've kind of made peace with it and be like, and I'm now starting to think like if that makes you happy, then like that makes you happy, right? But and also the fact that Studio Ghibli gets a little bit more exposure from that, it's still a win-win for me. But also I guess like in terms of like I think if you want to monetize from art, I know some artists like depend on their art to make a living, and which can be detrimental to their business. But I think for me, I still have that privilege of like I am trying to connect with people through my art, and not just like not just everybody, but people who resonate with my art as well. So it's not just the art that I am trying to put out there, it's also a part of me. And like I like the interaction that people have. Like they're just not buying my art, but they're also kind of interacting with me as well. So the human to human interaction.
Recycling is similar to what also happens in Europe, especially in Netherlands and Germany. And if you don't, you may also be get fined for it. A hard task indeed. So that's something that we have started, as you mentioned about the garbage system. So
Mhm.
that's really nice to note that the other countries are also been following the same trend.
Mhm.
Which is your favorite studio for the Ghibli anime?
So I would not say my favorite, but I like to rank on the top from the beginning. I would say Spirited Away. So the reason I love Spirited Away is when I first watched Spirited Away at the tender age of 10, I was terrified by No Face. Kaunashi is the Japanese name for it. So No Face was terrifying, and like I every time his scene showed up, I would just like not want to watch it and skip it. But as I grew older, like every year I would rewatch Studio Ghibli movies, and the older I got, the more I started to understand his character, and I kind of started to resonate. Like I see a reflection of myself with him as well, because like he consumed and he became whatever. Like he just wanted friends, and it kind of like I just added this whole tragic story of like kind of the relatability of my journey with his. And yeah, so it's definitely my first, and the others are Howl's Moving Castle, The Grave of Fireflies. I love every Ghibli movie, so it's really hard for me to choose one.
That's really nice. Coming ahead next is what is the difference between the education system in Qatar and Japan?
So for me, again, my Japanese education system that I experienced was the university, and of course, my university was completely in English. My course was in English. There were Japanese classes I had to take, but Qatar education system was, I would say, because I went to an international school, it was more in the British curriculum. So it's just the only difference was I was like going from a British curriculum to a more Americanized system as well. So first of all, I had to use use in my color, my favorite, like the words, the different, just the words, the way you spell it was very different. And yeah, it's really hard for me to make comparison because I was at different education systems at different stages of my life as well.
That's beautiful. So I think the education system between the two has their own ways of expressing how the child needs to grow.
Hmm.
So we have an appreciation coming. That's a great journey,
Thank you.
and another appreciation pouring in. So Gummy, there's a lot of cheering for you that is going on.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so the many more opportunities. Okay, so moving further. Right. What are the future opportunities in Japan for Indian citizens that can go for doing in a PG, like a higher master's degree
Mhm,
for physical education, like in sports coaching? How do they have an option, and like how can they pursue it?
mhm. So in terms of, I'm trying to understand. Okay, so education itself, there are courses. I think there are, I would say, opportunities. If it's just for education itself, there are opportunities for you to, like, there are English courses that you can take as well. And in sports, so I'm not very familiar with the sports industry here, but I would definitely say the first step is always to kind of grasp the language as well. There are opportunities where, you don't really need Japanese, but for me, my life, I found it way easier to like adapt to the Japanese society because I had the language. That 1 year of like intense Japanese in it like allowed me for a lot more opportunities as well. So being able first, maybe like trying to go to a language school first for like for like a year or so, fully immersing yourself in that language. And what another thing is, if you come from like, country with a majority population, so we do have Indians, like, in Japan, right? And if even if you're studying the language, but if you're still speaking Hindi or English with like people, outside of the school, then you'll never fully grasp the language. For me, I would say the one of the reasons I was able to kind of get hold of my Japanese was because I didn't have anybody to speak, Zonka with. I didn't have, most of my classmates were from like, China and Vietnam and all these, so I didn't have a common language except for Japanese. So I really had to immerse myself in the language itself. So I would definitely say start with the language, and you can, when you're studying the language, really immerse yourself in it as well.
That's really nice. So, what is the craze for sport in Japan? Like, which is the most common apart from playing video games or anime? What is the other thing that people are really fond of there in
Mhm.
sports?
Baseball, I would say baseball is something that's very popular here, and baseball, and I would say, of course, football as well are
Oh,
some of the
great.
most popular sports.
That's really nice. Okay, coming up next, we have being in the tech industry now. So, do you code?
Ah, that's a great question. I can code hyperlinks. I am not a coder. I'm not a developer myself. I work closely with the developers, but I have started coding like coding camps or like boot camps. So I know a little bit of code, just a bit, but I'm not a full coder.
Great. Okay, and I think moving on to the next question, I think so sort of there are many of them. People are really curious to know more about you. How has growing up between different cultures shaped your identity, and how do you feel fully at home in any one place?
Thank you. Yeah, this is like every like TCK question, right? Yeah. For me, again, there were perks, there were privileges in being a TCK, but also there are the struggles as well that we actually covered today. But even to this day, I feel like you'll never feel fully yourself. What my idea of being a Bhutanese would be very different from what someone's idea of being a Bhutanese is. Even within like my own family, my sister's identity as a Bhutanese is going to be very different from my identity as a Bhutanese as well. So we have very different experiences as third culture kids as well. So hers, she went to Australia. She lives in Australia now. So like her interaction with her other culture, again, it's very different. My brother actually, he, from the age of 14, he was put in a boarding school in northern part of India, and then after that he went to Singapore. So his experience is completely different as well. So it's, yeah, like at the end of the day, it's still hard to put yourself in one identity. You will always have many identities, but it's at the end of the day, you don't have to feel like you belong to one place, because why do you have to choose when all of them can be your, home? And I still feel that way as well, because when I go to, I as much as I fully identify myself as being Bhutanese, I would say Qatar. I don't have a Qatari passport. I don't have a Qatari citizenship, but it's still home to me. That's where, I got my education. That's where I saw the world and met the world as well. And that's where most of my friends are. And also Japan. Like this is where I became an adult. This like society watched me transition from like a young adult to now like a full-fledged adult as well. So yeah, I it's okay not to feel fully in one place, because you can be many places.
That's really beautiful takeaway to have, that you don't have to be at one place, you can be of many places. It's this
Mhm.
really incredible, Sonam, that you mentioned this thing, because somebody who is being a third culture kid can very well associate with this. So everyone who, another comment beautifully been portrayed here, everyone who packs their whole life in a suitcase and moves abroad can totally relate with being the third culture kid, being from nowhere as well as being from everywhere, taking a part of everywhere we have lived in. So I think that that's a transaction of every and all the third culture kids, or for that matter anybody who's moving abroad, leaving their home behind from where they were born and where they have lived in, possibly can associate with the kind of a discussion that we had today, talking about
Mhm.
not just the beautiful faces and all that is merry, but of course the challenges and the bitter truths as well that brings life to us. So we have
Mhm.
cheering on for you. Okay, so the next question coming up is what is your favorite thing to bond over with other third culture kids? Love from home, miss you gums. Okay, so we have
Mhm. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's family for
coming
sure.
directly from home. Yeah,
And
coming directly
yeah,
from.
for me, I think for me, I would say it's finding other third culture kids from Qatar. It's always a surprise, because I think in Japan, I've always wondered, like, whatever happens to other third culture kids, where do they go home? Where do they go end up going? Because most of my friends I know, they've gone back to their home country, so they've become returnees rather than like they're continuing their journey as third culture kids. But it's always a delight to find people, especially from Qatar, and which I did here in Tokyo as well, even within the same company that I currently am at. It was surprising to see, like, oh, this person also had the same experience of going to an international school, grew up somewhere, went to school somewhere, now is in Japan, had the same experience, and then especially bonding over, like, hey, shawarma, like, what are you craving for? And whenever like I go back home, I'm like, hey, do you want something from Qatar? Like, shawarma. I'm like, I can't bring shawarma, but like it's that kind of having that type of being able to relate and bond over these. And I think it's something that I was always envious of with other people who weren't third culture, especially people who had been brought up and raised in the same, like, town. They knew their friends, they had things they could bond over. I always kind of idolized that as well, romanticize having, like, being in that same town, being able to hang out with the same friends, like, watch growing up, getting, like, getting a family together, having a family, and then just like going through the life chapters together. And that was something that I always wanted. But now it just comes in like a forms of, like, sometimes meeting another third culture kid and being like, oh, like, you had that experience too, I had that experience too. So, and it's another thing that I definitely I like enjoy bonding over. It's the sometimes the ridiculous rules, the ridiculous, like, common sense. What is common sense would not be common sense. And yeah, the struggles of like a certain place and culture as well.
Right. So thank you for beautifully taking up all those questions. Sonam, we'll take another one and two, and then we'll wrap up, because it has been such a like beautiful discussion that possibly like we want to keep hearing this, but we have to somewhere put an end. So let's take up another question. How many countries have you traveled, and how do you feel about traveling?
Wow. Okay. I cannot count the amount of countries that I've traveled, but I would start off with when I was in Bhutan. I think because my father was in the aviation industry as well, so traveling was something that was like, just it would have been a privilege to many, but I was lucky enough to have a father working aviation. So as a kid, I think I went to Thailand, like Southeast Asia, Thailand, and all, and then once I moved to Qatar during summer holidays, I because I liked art. My father took my sister and I to France. That was like if you're under the age of 18, all the museums are free. So I think that's like quite common across Europe as well. So I was able to see like the famous Louvre Museum and all that. And yeah, like France. I've been to Europe. I've only been to the U.S. and North America. Been all over Southeast Asia. I still like I love Thailand a lot because it's also very close to my heart since I used to go there as a kid and now as an adult I go there, but like I go out after things that are very nostalgic to me. But with my company right now as well, I have had the opportunity to go to many different places. Thanks to my current work. And yeah, I recently was in Amsterdam and it was an amazing trip. But I would say I do enjoy traveling. I definitely it feels like home, but the only time that I think work trip is very different from like traveling for pleasure, and that's something I've realized because when I have to think of like a work trip, traveling for work trip, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to go through the schedule. Like I have to. It's you don't really get to see the place, right? And but if you're traveling just to visit and for pleasure, I think it's the best. And something about traveling as well. I know that most people kind of they're like, oh, I want to find the local places. I don't want to be very touristy, which I think I have the very opposite idea. I'm like, I want to be a tourist. Like these are countries and places I've always read up of like read up about when I was younger and I've only seen it through TV and the books, right? And I want to see them and I know they're going to be the most touristy place out there, but I think it's like I finally get to see the things like materialize the things that I've always seen like read in books as well. So yeah, I like being a tourist. Oh, I think sorry, Divya, I think I cannot hear you right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So I think
perfect.
that is the beauty of traveling, that we get to know the world and how cultures are different and how finding a home in every other place feels like. So that thing basically has come to you from transiting from so many places. As we have taken up so many questions and we need to end somewhere. The last question has been coming from me myself. I've been raising. I'm really interested to know that your virtual art, the virtual background that you used here, has something of your own. So could you please highlight a little more about the art? Is it done by you, or what exactly is it reflecting? So something that the audience would really look forward to know more.
First of all, I think I'd like to give Canva a shout out because that's one of my favorite like tools to use. But just the background of you can see the world map, and that's where Bhutan is. I'm like I think I'm probably pointing at the wrong side, but yeah,
Oh,
you can
really
see
nice.
Bhutan, and then two other places. I think it was mainly trying to reflect Qatar and Japan, so I kind of like spread across. And next to me on this side, I think on this side is my art. So this is part of my original design that I recently released. So it's called Home is the Himalayas, and this is a picture of it was an art of one of my characters just looking outside of a window, from an airplane, and just being covered by clouds. So it's kind of that's where home is. So yeah.
Sonam, it is really incredibly beautiful because even I focused on it right now because you had taken up the little elements to show the exact three cultures that you have been a part of.
Mhm.
And of course, the presence that you're living in right now with your artwork has been reflected on the virtual background, as well as even the hoodie that you're wearing right now is been
Mhm.
showing up the same, which is a live example of how possibly you have framed yourself into. And bringing your passion to purpose is specifically been highlighted, and how beautiful you are portrayed on the screen for the audience to watch over you. I think that is something really that they can actually take away, that live your brand.
Just live what exactly you're trying to produce. That's really nice and very beautifully portrayed, I must say.
Thank you very much.
It's really nice and a very candid discussion that we had today, Sonam, and so many takeaways that possibly talking about your liberal art studies, talking about homesickness, talking about you being excited from the souk of Qatar to talking about the deserts, and then coming to Japan where you're talking about finding peace, being in the Zen world. How the fragrances of oud has brought up a change to you coming to the sea and finding a different culture here all the more, trying to adjust into the work culture, bringing up a change in the tech world, and then how education system and possibly new opportunities, being a recruiter right now, being bold and carefree, and of course trying to set new trends with your origination and not hearing what people actually felt and believed. Talking about the studio Ghibli and how it is bringing up a new dimension with AI today. So everything has transited and beautifully portrayed your journey from Bhutan to Qatar and now to Japan. We wish you many more places ahead. And we really wish that we can actually take up another session where you can become the fourth culture kid or fifth culture kid, bringing up more diversity into this world and this cultures. It's really incredible. And we are really grateful that you joined us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to share a part of myself as well.
Thank you so much, Sonam. So, as we are nearing to the end, we wrap up this soulful and thought provoking session. I offer my heartfelt gratitude to Sonam for sharing a story, not just with words, but with sincerity, emotion, and grace. Sonam's journey gives voice to the countless third culture kids who often go unheard, those navigating identity, shifting geographies, and questions of who I am, where do I belong, in among the many places you're visiting, and yet not completely being at one. Sonam, you reminded us today that the identity is not a fixed point, it is fluid, evolving, and deeply personal. And in that, in betweenness lies incredible strength, creativity, and compassion. So we really, really incredibly grateful to you, Sonam. Thank you for sparing your time and sharing every bit of your journey with us today. We as an audience were really eager to hear and really curious to know that what exactly brings in the joy of being a third culture kid.
Thank you very
So thank you
much.
so much. Yeah. So really, thank you so much, Sonam. To everyone who has joined us, thank you for holding the space for this dialogue. May today's session and this conversation inspire you to honor complexities, embrace global identities, and nurture empathy in your classrooms, homes, and communities. Until next time, Education Connect with DM. Let's keep learning, connecting, and amplifying voices that matter. Thank you and a namaskar.